Hey everyone, welcome to the Eternal Card Game Tournament Shadowfall. This is our test tournament. I'm Luis Scott Vargas here with Patrick Sullivan, and we're testing out our tournament infrastructure. So we've got our first in-client tournament for Eternal, which is going to be leading up to our Worlds qualifiers, our World Championship eventually. But for now, we've got our top 32, and before we get into all that, we're actually going to talk a little bit about kind of how Eternal works, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of people watching right now probably play Eternal and are familiar with it, but some of you probably aren't. So before we hop into the actual games themselves, we wanted to talk a little bit about the rules of the game, so it'd be a little bit easier to follow. A lot of digital card games, there's the notion of direct attacking, where I have some units or some troops in play, and you've got some units and troops in play, and I sort of discreetly, A attacks B, and then B attacks C, and so on down the line. And Eternal doesn't work that way. Instead, there is an option on a player's turn to attack one time, and you send whatever units you want at the opposing player. And the opposing player then has an opportunity to block your units however they want to.
Including double blocking if they want, or triple blocking. And the ultimate goal of the game is to reduce your opponent from 25 health to 0, and you do that with units and, like Patrick said, attacking. How you cast the units, and then, of course, the spells that kind of support those is power. And so you have power cards, you have like sigils and banners and whatnot. And you can play one each turn, but you don't necessarily have one to play each turn. Your power does not automatically increment up.
Right, and that's another point of distinction from a lot of other popular digital trading card games is, you have the notion of mana or power, and you just get one a turn all the way up the line, and it happens automatically. Not the case in Eternal. There are power cards. You put them in your deck, you draw them, and you can play one of them per turn. Now, there are elements of the game engine and the way the opening hands are lined up and the mulligan system where you're guaranteed to have a certain amount of power to start the game off. But after that, then you draw cards on your turn, and if you don't have power to play, then you can't play them. So you're guaranteed to be able to get off the ground to a certain degree, but it's not guaranteed that you have 8 power on turn 8 100% of the time.
Right, and usually for me, I'll have about 2 or 3, but no.
Right.
So yeah, besides the redraw system, there's a lot of other quirks of the game. For example, like modifications to a unit often persist. So if you had a card that said, give a unit +2/+2, that unit would have +2/+2 forever. Even if it dies and then you bring it back, it'll still have +2/+2.
Exactly, and the game objects kind of move around in zones. It's not, if I kill one of your units, it's not like it just disappears. It's gone forever.
It goes to the void.
It goes to the void, which is then a zone where you may have cards that can get the unit back out of there or modify it in some other way. So those modifications persist. Now, there are unit weapons, and those are weapons that you attach onto your units. Those modifications don't persist. But we have some cards that say, for example, give a unit +2/+2. And even if that unit goes back to your hand, if it goes to a void, that +2/+2 will stay on the unit.
And similarly, you could also give a unit, let's say flying or lifesteal. Some of the, our battle skills, those are also permanent. And that works out pretty nicely because let's say you had a unit that said summon, when you play it, deal 1 damage. If you were to give that unit deadly and then bring it back and play it again, that deadly would work. Deadly, of course, means when you damage something, kill it. So you all of a sudden built this like awesome removal spell just by combining these two things.
And that's sort of a core element of Eternal is trying to make it a digital card game, capital D digital, lean into those elements that you can't necessarily do in physical trading card games, and persisting through zones and being able to modify cards in your hand and so forth. That all adds to give Eternal a very digital feeling.
Right, and it also kind of, on that theme, when you create cards, like, we're going to see, and, spoiler, we're going to see some decks that have cards like Assembly Line, which makes 3/1/1 Grenadins. These are our little drones, little fire robots. Those are actual cards once you make them. You have this card Assembly Line, you cast it, you make 3 and play, but if they die or get bounced, they're just cards. Like,
Right.
They're now in your hand. They count for cards in your void. So if they got shuffled into your deck, which some cards do, then they're now in your deck and you can draw them, though not the best draw in the world.
No, that came up recently against Ben Lundquist, where he killed all of my Grenadins and then Lumen Reclaimer.
Yeah, shuffle all of them back into your deck, and then
my
all of a sudden you're just drawing Grenadins every turn.
Right, and they have a cost too. The created cards also have a cost too,
Right.
so they're returned to your hand if they're shuffled in your deck. They're not zeros necessarily. Some of them are, but they do have costs, so they do function just as regular cards do.
Right, and so kind of the net total of all this, what our decisions were pushing to when we created the different card files, different rule sets for Eternal, is to have a digital card game that is fast-paced and that is pretty easy to play. It's also free to play. Part of the whole deal with all of this is that if you want to try Eternal, you can try it for free. If you go to eternalcardgame.com, It's free to download. You get to go through a tutorial, get some theme decks, and it's something that you certainly do not have to spend money on to be competitive.
It's certainly. I mean, I when I first got to Direwolf, uh, uh, one of the very first things that I did was start playing on and get that free to play experience, see what that's actually like. And I've come from other digital card games where it is free to play, but in terms of hours spent
Right.
to actually assemble a deck that's competitive, you're either putting in some money at some point, or you're playing for a lot of hours before you're really playing a legitimate competitive experience. And Eternal is not like that at all. I mean, within weeks of playing a fair bit, but not 10 hours a day or whatever, I was able to get a bunch of the high rarity cards and build decks that felt like the tier 1 decks.
Convince us to change cards that dealt damage to the opponent's face because we were a little high on those.
Yep, exactly. So Eternal is it's free to play is a tagline that gets put onto games, and it's one of those things that can be technically true but not actually true in practice. And
Right.
and part of the goal here is to make something that regular human beings would describe colloquially as free to play. And if you want to put in a couple bucks and get a sweet avatar or accelerate your collection, great. We certainly appreciate it, but it's by no means a requirement to be able to play the game competitively.
All right. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what we're going to see today, because this is a test tournament, and the way it's structured is as such. So players between Friday and Saturday, they had at their leisure the ability to play 18 games, so 3 runs of 6 games each, and the top 32 players made the final cut today on Sunday. So for anyone who went 15-3 or better made it, and some of the people who went 14-4 made it. So that makes up our top 32. And again, the fact that you can play at your own pace is a big part of why we structured the tournaments this way. If you live in a time zone that's very different from the one we're broadcasting from, then it's a lot easier. We're not starting at 10 a.m. Pacific for the Swiss rounds.
And also, people they have jobs and lives, and that's again, it's part of the what you can lean into as a digital card game is we can have tournaments or qualifier tournaments or what have you that aren't block out 10 hours of your day and wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning if you happen to live in certain parts of the world. We want to be able to do the asynchronous play so you can hop on and I've got a couple hours in the morning and I can do a run then, a couple hours in the afternoon, can do a run then, a couple hours in the evening. And so these players have done that over the course of the last few days. And as Luis mentioned, 18 total rounds. Everyone with a record of 15 or 3 and better made to the cut. Some number of X and 4s made it as well. That means we're going to have the concept of seeding as we go through this. The higher seeded player in the match will go first in game 1. These matches are 2 out of 3. Loser will go first in games 2 and 3 if necessary.
We actually haven't implemented that part yet. It is currently random right now.
Okay.
But that is what Patrick said is what our intention is. Part of the goal with this tournament, of course, it is a test event. We're trying to work out what works best, what doesn't, and figure out any kinks with that. But our top 32 is playing ranked. They don't have to play the same deck that they played in the qualifying rounds. And in fact, some of those players played 3 different decks. Well, I think only one actually played 3, but multiple people played 2 different decks. I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Right, exactly.
But once you pick your deck for this top 32, you're going to be stuck with that deck the entire time. It is a single elimination tournament, so we're going to see 5 rounds here. We're going to start out by covering a match, watch the entire match, and then if there's still people playing, we're going to hop into those games too. Let's actually take a look at our first match here. So we're watching RNG of RNG Eternal, actually, against Rico, and we can take a look at one of the deck lists here. Let's take a look at RNG's deck list here. This is Dark Icaria. So RNG chose to play this mainly Fire Justice deck, but touching Shadow for a couple of key cards here.
Yeah, you're looking at Annihilate and Statuary Maiden. But as Luis mentioned, the root of the deck here is a Rakano, a blend of a big armory deck and just a big unit deck. Slay also, of course, a major incentive to touch just a little bit of Shadow.
And the finishers here are these 2 pairs of Valkyries. We've got Ikari the Liberator and Razan Greatbow Master that really offer not only a way to close out the game, but also offer defense as well. Razan, for example, deals 3 and has lifesteal.
This is sort of a very classic 3 faction sort of take on try to be aggressive enough to punish decks that are sitting around trying to play a really long controlling game, and have enough defensive elements to be able to protect yourself against very aggressive strategies. many of the cards here are trying to do double duty. Throne Warden is a fairly large body, comes with a lot of armor, to a very good way of defending yourself against aggressive strategies. And a 4/4 Aegis is not a trivial threat for control decks to remove as well. And as Luis mentioned, Rizon, much the same thing. Pretty aggressive clock against decks that are not doing very much, but the lifesteal element of the card helps a lot against aggressive strategies. Akaria the Liberator, probably the top of the list of cards that are good at playing offense and defense in all of Eternal. And the rest of the deck is sort of filled out with cards that are trying to fill a similar role.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really cool about this deck as well is that look at how many cards provide optionality. You have 2 Rise to the Challenge, which gives you access to the 3 different weapons. You have 4 copies of Ixtun Merchant. And we're going to see a lot of merchants today. Merchants are a class of cards. There's one for each faction. That when you play them, lets you exchange a card in your hand for a card in your market. Your market is 5 different cards that correspond to the faction of the merchants that you played. So, for example, this Ixtun Merchant can get fire cards, and you notice there's 5 different fire cards, even though some are multi-faction, that offer Ixtun Merchant the ability to turn into Boar. It kills attachments. Statuary Maiden for a mid-range defensive threat. Black-Iron Manacle is a pretty nice one against control decks. Really punish those card draw cards. And then both Rizon and Akaria to have additional copies of those Valkyries.
Yeah, and I mean the markets you're going to see a lot of this, of cards that are a little bit situational. You know, Boar has its moments of being extremely powerful and has moments of not doing very much, and therefore is a card that's kind of hard to put in your starting deck, but as a market target is excellent. And then there's some high leverage targets here. Statuary Maiden against decks that are playing with a lot of small units is one of the best cards in Eternal. Black Iron Manacles, really high leverage cards against decks that are sitting around not doing anything. And then a little bit of redundancy with your top end threats in Rizon and Akaria. So going through these deck lists, it's not a requirement to play merchants, but many of these decks will. And exploring their markets is about as important to analyzing the deck as the deck list itself.
Alrighty, so it looks like our match has started. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at Akari versus Rico. Welcome to round 1 of our Shadowfall test event. We're a couple turns in here. We've got RNG facing off against Rico, and RNG's playing that Dark Akaria deck we just talked about, facing off against kind of like a more mid-rangey Praxis deck. This isn't Praxis tokens, this is Praxis big stuff.
Yeah, and you can see Rico already, understands the threats he's going to be playing against and what he needs to do in this game. Dawnwalker is going to be one of the most important cards because his deck, playing with a lot of just big, expensive units, is going to be vulnerable to Harsh Rule, and Dawnwalker is probably the best card in the entire deck in terms of insulating against that in the long term.
Ooh, RNG has come prepared though. You see there, a Statuary Maiden RNG has drawn, or has used Rise to the Challenge to go fetch actually, and Statuary Maiden will fight against this pair of Dawnwalkers here.
Well, given enough time, although RNG's hand is fairly clunky, there's not anything easy to pair with Statuary Maiden here. You'd ideally like to have something like Torch would be perfect in the spot. Instead, you're going to have to play Statuary Maiden and then hope to get to the next turn, it looks like.
Would you just fire off the Harsh Rule here just to buy yourself a little breathing room?
Well, with Rico on 4 power, there aren't a whole lot of threats at 5 that can get the Dawnwalkers back. You're basically looking at Whirl Bearer Behemoth, and that assumes that there's another time sigil to unlock that as well. So it's not a bad spot to Harsh Rule. I like the play here of getting a Rizon though, because it's kind of the best of both worlds. Straight up, it's very good against the board here. You gain some health and get one of the Dawnwalkers off, and it still allows you to leave the Harsh Rule back.
So a third Dawnwalker from Rico is going to put RNG under a lot of pressure. Does play that Rizon, and unsurprisingly takes out the largest Dawnwalker. And notice that Dawnwalker has Killer. With Zenith Initiation, it's now a 5/2 Killer. Every time it comes back, it will have Killer again. And Killer lets you direct attack, kind of the way Patrick was talking about some other games work.
Yeah, and that does speak to also the persistent through zones, as you mentioned earlier, that the Dawnwalker is going to come back every single time with Killer. Dawnwalker plus a Killer modification, one of sort of the essential interactions in Eternal right now.
And RNG may have turned a corner here. Going to be able to either play Statuary Maiden plus slay that other Dawnwalker and remove it permanently, because Statuary Maiden turns any slain enemy units into cudgels. And then have the Statuary Maiden back to block the Teacher of Humility. Rico really needs to draw some power to deploy those expensive threats.
And I also like this play a lot from RNG as well, because Rico sort of representing Torch here. The Dice Show would have gotten 1 threat off, but the Torch would have handled the Dice Show. Statuary Maiden lines up very well against Torch here.
Wow, an aggressive not blocking by RNG. Just chooses to take the hit off the Teacher of Humility.
RNG's got 7 power, so even under disciplinary weights, many of his draws here are imminently playable.
All right, well, that leads into an all-head mount breaker for Rico, but RNG is prepared and is going to clear the board here with Harsh.
Yeah, very well set up.
Yeah, and that worked out perfectly for RNG. You see that Statuary Maiden takes effect even though through the Harsh rule, the fact that all the units died at the same time means that all of those Dawnwalkers are now cudgels. So those Dawnwalkers, instead of beating RNG over the head, are now going to, in a sense, beat Rico over the head.
And you can see the cudgels here in hand are 3 costs. That's due to disciplinary weights. When a card has had its cost modified and gone up, you'll see it in the upper left-hand corner in red. When it's gone down, you'll see it in green.
And we count cards as being drawn almost every time they come from anywhere to your hand. If it gets bounced from your board to your hand, it's not drawn, but just about everywhere else, it does count as drawn.
Very nice play there from RNG too, putting a cudgel there on the Throne Warden, knowing that this practice deck has Predatory Carnosaur, wants to make sure the Throne Warden at least trades off in the event that Rico plays a Predatory Carnosaur.
And RNG was behind almost this entire game, but I think played in a very disciplined way, took a lot of extra damage to set up the plays that they wanted to make, and now is significantly ahead.
Yeah, and I think that the philosophy here is the deck is a lot more powerful, RNG's, as long as he protects himself from Dawnwalkers doing too much. And he was willing to take a lot of hits and set up for numerous turns to get to a spot where the Dawnwalkers were permanently answered, and then his overall higher quality cards can take the day.
And one of the cool things about the way RNG's deck is constructed is that Throne Wardens and Rizons give you a lot of health back or armor back to kind of put you in a spot where even you can pay a lot of health early and just get it back later.
And we spoke earlier about the, decks like this Dark Kano, Dark Ikaria deck trying to play offense, defense at the same time. And you're seeing a lot of these cards doing double duty of both protecting RNG earlier on in the game and then playing cleanup once the game's been stabilized.
Yeah, so Rico's trying to get back into things with Heart of the Vault, use their Carnosaur, which was a 7/7 thanks to Xenon Obelisk, to trade with Ikaria, but Ikaria got one hit in, and look, that Bullet Shaper's a 7/8. The damage kind of was done. Quarry here from RNG trying to just find more ways to get the threats out of the way on Rico's side, and Slay reduced by -1 cost thanks to Quarry, +2 cost thanks to disciplinary weights. And we're going to be closing things out pretty quickly here in RNG's favor with just a 10-10 and a 9-10 just coming in.
Yep, Cudgel goes on the Bullet Mage there to make both of the threats lethal. Rico forced to just chump both of them, and I think we'll be looking at lethal next turn.
And Rico has, a powerful deck and a lot of different options here, but the Ikaria deck has just got kind of, once it starts going, it just snowballs from there.
Yeah, it's a tough to split there, where you're playing against Harsh Rule, and you can get overwhelmed on the table as well. That the Ikaria deck can put on so many numbers that it's hard to play both games at the same time.
And this is something that you see in kind of repeated among card games where, look, you've got a mid-range deck, what Rico's playing against a bigger mid-range deck, a more controlling deck, and Rico's deck might be more well set up against, say, aggressive decks, because you always want to be like one level higher. But in this matchup, it looks like RNG's deck is like one level bigger than Rico's.
Yeah, and a Harsh Rule is a unique element of the matchup too, where having to be better on the table, to put more numbers on there, while also leaving enough back where if they do have Harsh Rule, you can rebuild. That's why the Dawnwalker is so critical. That's
right.
The thing that lets you do both
you
at the same
just
time.
never feel bad about playing out Dawnwalkers. There's just no cost to it.
And and RNG knows that as well, which is why he was willing to take some hits there and set up in such a way where he got to align Statuary Maiden along with Harsh Rule. Because once the Dawnwalkers are taken care of forever, if they just are going back and forth with who has more numbers on the table and who can sweep the board if they're behind, RNG is a huge favorite in those kind of games.
Looks like they're ready for game 2. Remember, these are best 2 out of 3, so let's head back to the game. So, we've got RNG against Rico here, and RNG is, well, on a somewhat slow hand. That is typical of this deck, and I'm not surprised that RNG left a Slay on top with the crest there.
Yep. There's a lot of 6 cost units in Rico's deck. Slay's going to be good. Maybe not now, but it'll come up.
So RNG is satisfied knowing that on turn 3 that they can deal with like a Teacher of Humility potentially, or maybe even take out this Initiative Sands here, because slowing down the opponent, especially if Rico misses a power drop here, which Rico's going to, because remember, you need double time influence to cast that Temple Scribe. So even though the Trailmaker provides that, Rico's not able to cast the Temple Scribe right now. I think that there is some thought potentially to taking out one of Rico's units there.
Well, I think the play here is to go to Harsh Rule. I mean, Rico has been missing power drops. That's public information to RNG. Rico's gonna have to play more stuff onto the table here to put on sufficient pressure, and then the Harsh Rule gets to mop everything up.
Oh, that does remind me of something we did not mention leading into the broadcast. We are on a 10-minute delay, so these players can't watch the stream and glean any useful information from it. Not saying either of these players would, certainly not. But we're removing the temptation for players in the tournament to watch the stream when they're the featured round. We would like to, basically make it so there isn't even the hint of impropriety. Exactly. So Xenon Obelisk there makes it so Rico doesn't have to deploy really any more threats, but RNG's still gonna be really happy casting Harsh Rule at some point here. Though looks like we're going shopping here.
Yeah, we're gonna go get a boar here to take care of the Xenon Obelisk, and the Harsh Rule here is not really that great because Rico has a ton of power. The faction influence has been unlocked to be able to play anything, and the units that Rico has played so far are kind of replaceable. They summon and do something, they draw a card. So RNG rather wants to get a real card for his trouble before playing the Harsh Rule, and looks like this Heart of the Vault will probably induce it.
So look, RNG once again kind of taking the long view here. This is exactly what the deck's trying to do. Look, RNG's at 11, not in the highest of health totals, but being able to play an Akari at 11 and critically taking out multiple of Rico's power producers here is going to be a pretty big swing with this Harsh Rule.
Yeah, and you look at the leftovers of Rico's hand, they're not shabby. A Heart of the Vault to Rico, but Akaria, for all how powerful it is, it's not actually that many numbers for the cost, and it might mean that this Zen Initiation lines up the right way.
Akaria leaning very heavily on Aegis to protect herself. That means that the first time the enemy tries to do something bad to Akaria, whether it be a spell or an ability, Aegis protects her. But that does not stop Killer. That's a direct attack. That's not an effect.
Yeah, Aegis doesn't protect you in combat. It protects you from spells.
Heart of the Vault there, going straight to RNG's face, and RNG's going to be able to deal with Heart of the Vault thanks to Slay, but does need to draw the whatever Akaria buffs pretty soon here. Because that second Heart of the Vault will threaten to run past that Akaria and put RNG in a really bad spot.
Yeah, but RNG should have several draws at it before it's a crisis. And this is a really nice turn here.
Yeah, draw Dawnwalker means that Xenon Initiation plus Dawnwalker takes out Akaria. The student gets to hit, or the teacher gets to hit rather. And now, even though RNG's drawn a 12-13 Bullet Shaper, I think RNG's in a lot of trouble.
For sure. Heart of the Vault and Shatterglass Mage are two units there that can recur the Dawnwalker. And with RNG's health total where it's at, it's possible Rico can win this game just by going wide. And subsequent unit draws are not going to be very good because that Dawnwalker is going to block out most of them.
One thing that the only saving grace for RNG here is that Dawnwalker does come back exhausted, so can't kill her right away. Really good design move on that front. But you're able to still end up in a spot where next turn RNG is going to be facing down enough attackers that they're going to go on to game 3.
Yep. And again, we saw the straddling line of playing enough threats, but giving yourself enough resources to work with against Harsh Rule is complicated for that big practice deck to negotiate that. And Dawnwalker is
it bridges the gap.
It does both so well.
Yeah. So and it looks like the players are ready actually. So let's just head back to game 3.
Get back in.
Let's not be fooled. People didn't come here to listen to us. They came here to watch the games. We'll provide some trappings, but that's the best we can do. See RNG lead off with a Seed of Glory here, and this is a somewhat awkward hand for RNG because, look, Quarry requires Shadow Influence. RNG currently doesn't have access to that, and triple Auric Runehammer with only 2 power. Luckily, Bullet Shaper does let RNG discard a spell in order to get +2 power this turn. So if RNG can, even if RNG misses, RNG can discard the Quarry next turn to cast the Auric Runehammer. Not a great spot to be in, but it does give you some options.
And Rico here again with a Dawnwalker plus Zen Initiation set up here. Little bit away from being able to do that, but if RNG is going to be slow out of the gate, it's possible facing down against that pretty soon.
Yeah, and I think a pretty good play from RNG. I think you have to go for discarding that Quarry here. It's not the thing you're the happiest about, given that you're on 2 power, but instead of doing nothing, getting to play an Auric Runehammer is a pretty big deal.
Making the best of a bad situation.
Ooh, Venom Rider. I love that one.
Nice. And I like the Temple Scribe play there from Rico, trying to just swallow up that last Auric Runehammer hit with something that is a very valuable unit.
Yeah, and in fact, RNG chose not to attack with Bullet Shaper or Auric Runehammer because RNG wanted to keep the Runehammer alive. Rico could have actually attacked with both the Temple Scribe and the Venom Rider there and taken out the Runehammer, and instead is just going to trade the Venom Rider with the Runehammer itself.
I suppose that the theory there is you're happy with getting the, if you're able to exchange the Venom Rider for both the Bullet Mage and the Runehammer, that's not a bad exchange, instead of just allowing him to eat up the Temple Scribe for nothing and get rid of the Runehammer you were going to lose anyway.
So, Ixtun Merchant from RNG. Unfortunately for RNG, does not have a power in the market. Some people play a power in the market, but RNG doesn't have that. Picking up another Statuary Maiden, which is going to be effective here if RNG can draw Shadow Influence.
Although now he's getting attacked here kind of on multiple fronts. It's not just a game about Dawnwalker right now, but a lot of strength in Rico's hand.
Next turn, RNG is going to hope to play that Statuary Maiden, but a 2/8 Aurelian Merchant, thanks to I'll head there, is going to give Rico a lot of stats on the board, and then also gets to dig through his market to pick up, I don't know, is it an Obelisk or potentially another big threat? We'll see what Rico needs. It's not actually clear here. Oh, wow. The Thundering Carousel. That is enormous. 6 cost 16/16.
And when you use a Merchant, that counts as drawing a card. So anything that interacts with drawing a card, say Inspire or Fate, will trigger off of a Merchant exchange, which is why that Carousel is just so big.
So here, Rico does have that Carousel. The 16/16 has Overwhelm, and when any player plays a spell, the opponent draws a card. So that's going to punish RNG if RNG has Harsh Rule, but I think Rico's gonna conclude pretty soon here that RNG doesn't even have Harsh Rule.
Yep, and on top of that, just as long as Rico can keep the Statuary Maidens relatively managed, the Dawnwalkers are gonna just get an extreme advantage over time, even against Harsh Rule.
So RNG needs not only to draw a number of removal in a row, but also needs Rico to maybe keep that Thunder and Carousel back out of fear of Harsh Rule. And this is where you get the benefit of Harsh Rule, even when you don't have it. Like, Rico could just go completely ham and just play all their units, but because of the respect for Harsh Rule, might not do that.
And also, at this point, RNG is low enough on resources that it's possible, Rico doesn't have to lean that heavily on the Dawnwalker to finish out this game. RNG's an effective 8 health, a lot of just resources to work with in hand, Forge to maybe close out this game. So it doesn't have to be leaning so heavily on Dawnwalker in the spot.
Yeah, and Rizon, one of the better cards RNG could have found there.
He needs offense and defense.
Yeah,
both.
And it does both. And thanks to those cudgels, the Ixtun Merchant is pretty big, but a 16/16 Carousel with Xenon Initiation, that's just going to end the game right away.
Yep. That's 10 coming across here with the Overwhelm.
And boom, because Overwhelm and Killer does in fact work. So the Carousel takes down RNG, and RNG is one of the first people eliminated from this tournament.
Yes, a good start there. Game number 1, kind of how you want the game to look, where you line up Statuary Maiden plus Harsh Rule, take care of the Dawnwalkers, and then you just have more stuff to work with, more powerful units. But games 2 and 3, Dawnwalker I think was pretty problematic. The third game, the fact that you're 3 factions and was missing Shadow and wasn't really able to leverage the Bullet. Had to use Bullet Mage basically just to stay at above water instead of really pushing ahead like you prefer to do with that card.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got another game. So let's hop in and take a look. We're going to get there in just one sec. One thing I did want to mention, by the way, is we are doing special Twitch drops for this stream. So if you're watching this stream, I guess if you're not watching the stream, you're not hearing this, so it's a little weird. But if you're watching the stream you have linked your Eternal account and your Twitch account, you're eligible for Twitch drops, and these don't count towards your daily limit of Twitch drops that are going on right now.
Yeah, so make sure to be doing that. It's free, and get some free stuff.
All right, let's head down to the game. Alrighty, so here we've got Knife Bloom against Bradykin, and wow, Bradykin playing one of the temporal control decks, it looks like here, with these expensive 8-cost cards like Channel the Tempest and Sword of the Sky King, and trying to just be defensive until you can really utilize those. Facing down against Combre, kind of like a Combre mid-rangey / aggressive deck that's trying to pressure the opponent and then use Stand Together to make it so they can't come back.
Yeah, and Stand Together is really, the kind of the key swing card in a matchup like this. Again, decks like Combre with a lot of more expensive units that need a little bit of time to really get going. Harsh Rule is public enemy number 1 there, and Stand Together is often excellent against that card.
Here, it looks like Bradykin's lagging a little bit in the power department, thanks to just the acceleration that the Combre deck plays. So, still a little ways away from being able to utilize these 8-cost cards, and under not the most pressure in the world. I think a bunch of 1-strength units here.
At a healthy 27, and I think the plan here is just to attack and just use the Stand Together this turn anyway. Stand Together will cause all the units to be able to survive a block from the Aurelian Merchant.
Doesn't last just till end of turn. So now, even if Bradykin had a Harsh Roll, it would do almost nothing, and Knife Bloom has just come to the conclusion that just pressuring the opponent is what they need to do, because if this temporal deck gets rolling, it's really hard to stop.
We're at a point now where it's not just Harsh Rule that's the concern. It's just Sword of the Sky King, Channel the Tempest, just being ground down by superior cards. And with Bradykin at 27, it's just time to get a move on.
Yeah, Vital Arcana doing some good work here, drawing 2 and gaining 4. And that Aurelian Merchant is also saving Bradykin from taking a ton of damage here.
Yeah, it's been a great blocker. Even when Stand Together, making sure that all the units can survive the block, it's still absorbing quite a bit.
You see Amelie Cloud Marshal coming in down for Knife Bloom. Amelie is, one of the cycle, we call them God tiers in development, though not for any particular reason, I don't think. Like you have that in the Jotun Feast Caller and Shadowlands Tyrant that tick up World Bearer Behemoth, that tick up every time they attack, but you don't usually need too many attacks with this, gigantic flyer to finish the game.
Yeah, it's rare that it's, I really need the 3rd attack. It's not something that comes up very often.
Here we see a Hailstorm mainly knocking off Aegis. It does not do a whole lot more than that, but that does kind of imply that a Harsh Rule is coming.
Yeah.
Even though we can see, because we can see the hands, Bradykin doesn't have a Harsh Rule. If I were Knife Bloom, I would not want to deploy another unit here.
Well, it's a little bit complicated, because Bradykin had enough power there to play both a Hailstorm and a Harsh Rule in the same turn. So that might be the case. But if I'm Knife Bloom, I'm not 100% sure that Harsh Rule's in the opposing hand. And also, it kind of doesn't matter. The amount of pressure here that you're applying if you don't deploy any more units is not going to be sufficient to kill Bradykin before you just lose to random control stuff. It doesn't just have to be Harsh Rule.
And the Scorpion Wasp does point a little towards Bradykin not having Harsh Rule. You will be able to use that information to deduce. The odds go down, and Bradykin's on the 1-for-1 plan, and again, we're kind of seeing the dividends of having Harsh Rule in your deck, where Knife Bloom is not curving out as much as possible because of fear of that, and is kind of getting nickel and dimed here with Scorpion Wasps.
Yeah, and now just look at the leftovers here. Knifekin can't even really make headway on the ground anymore, squaring off against 2 Channel Tempest. Though it's possible this last Amelie could be good. I mean, Bradykin can't kill it right now, and if this goes the distance, if Knife Bloom happens to draw a Stand Together next turn, might be able to squeeze this one out.
Well, what if Bradykin was playing lots of Jotun Hurlers and targeted the Amelie and drew 3 Jotun Hurlers off Channel the Tempest?
I think there was a calculation on one of the turns there that you could have channeled the Tempest, one of the first Amelies, if you spiked a fake card. And there was a pause there from Bradykin.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was doing the math on just how many hits.
Oh, that is the most fun channel, is when you need to hit a fake card off your channel. But hopefully you're correctly playing, at least 4 Jotun hurlers to begin with. So.
Yeah, at least. I can get behind, 3 plus 1 in the market, but you got to have the full 4.
Oh yeah. But Knife Bloom is on all threats here. Unfortunately for Knife Bloom, that Channel Tempest did find the harsh rule. So we are going to look at a board wipe, and then once the Stronghold's Visage comes down, then you're feeling that inevitable crushing grip of the control deck here.
We've hit the stage where Bradykin's huge favorite to win here. Going to be able to start grinding back up some health, some armor, and just try to trade off, win with the leftovers.
Yeah, and now Bradykin is just sitting back behind multiple removal spells. No card draw, so Bradykin's not really like pressing the advantage, but Knife Bloom's had enough anyway.
Tapping out knows. And the Scorpion Wasp there is such an important element of that whole package because it means that you can't just lean on Aegis to be able to win the game. Stand Together had moments of being very good, and if you're just trying to win the game or control against units with Harsh Rule and Hailstorm, that can be good enough. There's some decks that really struggle against that sort of game plan. But if they're come prepared with Stand Together or the analogs to that card, Scorpion Wasp is really the kind of answer you want there.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got another game for you here. We're talking with our crack production team here. If you could actually only see us here, it's
team of one.
It's literally Matt Nass. But we're working at the kinks. Thanks for bearing with us. I know that the transition video is a little loud, and I'm saying this now 10 minutes in the future because the 10-minute delay. But we're your feedback is important, and we're getting there. We're gonna do our best here to make sure it's a good viewing experience. We tried to get better commentators, but this is what you're left with.
I mean, on a Sunday morning, you guys got to take who's ever willing to show up.
Yeah, like Chapman's in Egypt right now, so he wasn't available. But right. All right, our game is ready, so let's head down to the game. See, us as commentators can't hear the sword video. I really hope Matt Nass turned up the sound. I hope he just made it insanely loud. All right, so what do we got here? We've got Jerry Lanu against Drunk Seraph, and we've got, an Invoke the Wastelands. Oh, yeah, Jerry Lanu's got one of the coolest decks here in the top 32. A deck that has, Improvised Rubbler and the Claw of the First Dragon, Invoke the Wastestones, just some awesome stuff, and is now knocked out thanks to... Big Combre. All right, well,
there you
go. that was a good game.
It wouldn't be cool if it won all the time.
Yeah,
everything is cool until it starts winning a ton, and then it's no longer cool. So that's an important concession.
Right, you have a deck that we've had decks that are the bad guy before, but then when they stop winning, they all of a sudden become the good guy again. The deck didn't change, just the win rate did.
Yeah, a really important concept is just. Everything's novel in small doses.
Yeah.
And even play patterns that maybe aren't the best or cards that can be a little frustrating. If it's 1 time out of 100, maybe that adds something to the experience, but 1 time out of 10 is not. And winning 45% of the time is novel, and winning 55% of the time is obnoxious and infuriating.
Well, this is the analogy we always use in design that people probably are sick of by now. It's the ice cream for dinner analogy.
Right.
Everyone wants ice cream. Ice cream for dinner might get old. We're adults. We can buy ice cream and eat it when we want, but we are aware that we should not eat ice cream every single meal. And at a point, because I've tried this, it stops tasting good. So it looks like we might have a game. Our production team is investigating. And just, to kind of recap where we're at in the tournament. This is the first round of 32. This is single limb. So any player you see losing a match, that's it for them. Their Sunday's over. They still get the top 32 prizes, and we did juice those, but this is single limb. We're going to be going through 5 rounds of it, but we're going to watch games until this round concludes. And sounds like we've got another one, so let's head down to the game. Here we've got Sexson. I think that's how you say that. I don't know how multiple X's work exactly. Versus Lone Goat. Lone Goat's got a Winchest Merchant in play. Currently a 7/7 and silenced, but facing down against Temporal Control, which... Again, looking pretty good in these games. We've seen it now twice, and both times it has seemed like it's ahead.
Although this is a slightly different scenario here, playing against a deck with relic weapons, a place where sometimes these control decks can be a little bit soft. If you're not playing units to block, then you're taking all the damage yourself, and it is a vulnerability even when they're ahead at time.
And Icaria is still a really good card against these decks. Scorpion Wasp is key. We've seen a lot of Scorpion Wasp, stinging people before. But if Sexson doesn't have another one to fetch out of the market, then that Icaria is going to do a lot of work.
And I think there's, a lot of good things going on from Lone Goat's side here. You can't channel the Tempest away the Bullet Shaper. A harsh rule here is a little, whatever. Then your Icaria is at least clear. The Icaria is very good against channel the Tempest naturally. So even though it looks like this control deck is very close to stabilizing the game, a lot of powerful resources to work with, it's possible Lone Goat's threats might just line up the right way here.
And one of the skills in playing against the temporal control deck is kind of rationing out your threats, knowing when to play on Harsh Rule or when to play on Scorpion Wasp. And it'll be interesting to see how Lone Goat does here. Though, Roland's Intervention, really, really powerful in this spot, because the mode we're mainly concerned with, and you can see Lone Goat didn't play the Icaria, is the -3 strength to an enemy mode.
Yeah, that's a really heads-up attack. Let's see. Maybe deploy the Valkyrie Enforcer here, try to shrink the Merchant down, and leave yourself... If you leave the Icaria plus the Intervention back, then a power next turn is good, even though you're a little heavy on power.
I don't think it's insane to just run out Icaria and pass. It really does telegraph something's going on there, but it does mean you don't have to draw power to set up the turn of Icaria, get Scorpion Wasp, Intervention. On the other hand, having Icaria in play does expose her to, opposing cards, because Aegis is not, permanent. It gets knocked off.
Right. I generally, in spots, a heuristic I go to is try to set up the game where if you draw a power card, great, and if you draw a non-power card, also great.
Oh, the dream.
Yeah, so that sort of that tilts me towards just leave the Icaria back, play the Valkyrie Enforcer if you want to. If you get hit with a harsh rule, you're still drawing to power in a really good way, and if you draw something else to play, you just play something else.
This is going to be a really tough turn, or this was a really tough turn for Lone Goat, and you could see Lone Goat kind of going to a clock already. You saw the timer kind of run out, because in Eternal you don't have infinite time to make your decisions. It's deploying. There's basically deploy Valkyrie Enforcer or deploy Icaria or do neither, and they're all really valid lines.
Yeah. Lone Goat there, but even if I may have played the Valkyrie Enforcer, I think it's close. That's still, I think, an extremely sharp turn, knowing that with Sexson playing the Merchant last turn, almost certainly got a Scorpion Wasp heads-up play there by not exposing the Icaria.
Speaking of Lone Goat, that has something to do with one of our first preview cards for our campaign that we'll be getting to in between rounds here.
Seamless.
Look at that. That's called professional transitioning. So, Lone Goat still in kind of the same spot. Still not really thrilled about playing Icaria into a Scorpion Wasp here. And if you're Lone Goat, what do you think Sexson used the Merchant to go get the second one?
I mean, Temporal Distortion makes the most sense. A mid-range sort of thing on the board, like a Predatory Carnosaur type of card, is just so small here that it doesn't really make much sense what else could have gotten if you assumed the first one got Scorpion Wasp.
Yeah. So I think that, us using our powers of looking at the opponent's hand can see that there's a Temporal Distortion, but it does make a lot of sense to get that too. Also getting that fast seek power ready. Oh yeah.
And you really don't have the breathing space under this level of pressure to go get something like Invoke the Waystones to grind out a longer game. So if I'm in Lone Goat's spot, I'm still definitely believe Scorpion Wasp was in hand, and all of Lone Goat's plays for the last couple turns suggest that Lone Goat believes this to be the case also.
Well, this could change things. The second Icaria means that maybe you just trade the first one for the Scorpion Wasp and just move on with your life.
Oh, no question. That's really appealing, and I think...
You also get the Warcry 5, +5/+5. If your next card is another Whirling Duo, that's insane.
Yeah. Allows it to play over the top of the Aurelian Merchant.
How many times did I deck myself with Invoke the Waystones when we were testing out some of the new cards?
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah,
it's an indulgence.
Ooh, Sword of the Sky King. That is an answer. That will keep Sexson alive, but I think Sexson's in a ton of trouble here.
So Sword of the Sky King amounts to 16 total health and looking at 18 damage here. So that's not good enough. Channel the Tempest is not good enough against Icaria.
So it looks like Temporal Control will not advance this round, assuming that Lone Goat cast that Icaria that they so cleverly slow rolled.
Well, I think the line here is if you channel the Tempest, the Valkyrie Enforcer, and Spike,
and hit a
Echo, or
like
Fake
a Find
card,
Away or a
then you
Jotun
fall
Hurler.
to 2, and then maybe you're okay.
Yeah, that is something that's possible, but even then the Akari is still probably pretty hard to deal with. Ooh, Lone Goat worried about Harsh Roll. Okay, so Lone Goat is gonna send in. You get to kill the Whirling Duo, and actually Sexson lives to fight another day.
Yep, showing a lot of respect there for. I guess Lone Goat's in a spot where they feel like if they draw an 8th power, they're definitely going to win the game, and they still might be able to win just with what they have.
Also key that Roland's Intervention can give one of your Valkyries Aegis, so you got Ikaria Valkyrie Captain as a 9/8 there. If Sexson goes for something, bam, you can protect it. So I think Lone Goat's still a heavy favorite here.
Right. It's that line from Lone Goat last turn, extremely conservative. But if you think that you've just got the game on lock, then you can afford to be extremely conservative.
And Sexson does have a way out here. Auric Runehammer, kill the Valkyrie Enforcer. Next turn, Harsh Roll, and but then get Roland's Intervention in it, and then go to 1. But that relies on Lone Goat not playing Ikaria.
Yeah.
Though if Lone Goat plays Ikaria, needs to draw power to cast Roland's Intervention. This is actually ending up a really interesting sequence of turns. Temporal Distortion is what's letting Sexson refresh all their power and then play spells at fast speed, by the way. All right, so once again, do you go for it if you're the Lone Goat?
I mean, this feels like
They didn't play the power.
Oh, that is.
They can't cast Roland's Intervention now. And now Hailstorm plus Harsh Roll is going to wipe down both Angels.
Yeah, and the leftover sphere is the Wisdom of the Elder Sphere.
Against a Roland's Intervention? Wow. That was a pretty big misstep from Lone Goat.
Yeah, that seemed like a. I thought that was in play to even Roland's Intervention at the end of Zen's turn.
Yeah.
So you didn't even need power number 8 to play 2 Aegis attackers.
Wow, and there's an Auric Runehammer there sitting on Sexson as well. This has been intense.
Now, keep in mind, Lone Goat's got a lot of Warcry triggers floating around here. So could draw some very large threats, still win the game easily. But
This game's far from over, but it looked like it was just over. This is the biggest comeback we've seen so far. Sexson's going to draw another Wisdom of the Elders. And, well, I mean, the Temporal deck, look, Wisdom of the Elders begets more Wisdom of the Elders, finds Vital Arcana, finds Channel the Tempest, and then you're kind of rolling from there.
And now with all the spells available at fast, you see Harsh Rule, you see Vanquish plus Hailstone plus Harsh Rule. They have cover against even a large Ikaria off the top is not going to be good.
Yeah, and that Shogunate tactic really not going to affect the outcome of this game right now, thanks to all those removal spells in Sexson's hand. And then you saw earlier that Hailstorm knockoff Aegis, it can still do that. It has the ability to, even if its effect not going to do something, not going to do a whole lot, knockoff Aegis is powerful.
So at this point, I think that from Lone Goat's side, he needs a relic weapon. That's the hit here.
Oh yeah.
Because all the cards in Zen's hand are anti-unit measures. There's a relic weapon in the market that might be good enough.
And Winchest Merchant's going to be one of the better draws here. It just gives you, not only is it a 7/7 flyers, gives you some optionality in. All right, the deep forward play that's going to be rough going.
Yeah, that's just another way to load up on a unit, and that's not going to be good here.
So that is a unit weapon, to be clear, and so it gives a unit +5/+5 endurance and overwhelm. But given how many removal spells are in Sexson's hand, it's really going to be hard to land a hit with that deep forge plate.
Yep. Yeah, that's something where you would want, something like Auric Runehammer could be your way to get out.
Right.
Any unit or anything that augments a unit, I think is unlikely to be good here.
So Sexson chose to forego an attack with Auric Runehammer because relic weapons can't attack the opponent unless there's no units in play, no enemy units, in order to keep up a fast Harsh Roll, a fast Hailstorm, and fast Vanquish, just to make sure that if Sexson played any charge units, they wouldn't have to use multiple removal spells.
Yep. Just being overly cautious in a commanding position, no need to expose yourself to any unnecessary risk.
And this Auric Runehammer might close out the game. 3 more hits of this will take Lone Goat to 1, then maybe that Scorpion Wasp does the last point of damage. Oh, there's a relic weapon.
Although now, unfortunately, from Lone Goat's perspective, there's a Scorpion Wasp to get in front of the Runehammer. You can use ambush against relic weapons, not just units. And then Zen's Auric Runehammer will knock off the Auric Runehammer on the following attack.
Yeah, so Scorpion Wasp kind of counts as a removal for Auric Runehammer in this particular instance. So the Runehammer won't die to the Scorpion Wasp because of the invulnerability this turn, but next turn the other Auric Runehammer that's on Sexson is gonna kill the first Runehammer. So relic weapon versus relic weapon is always kind of funny.
Yep. Helps to have a unit.
Yes. So there you see Auric Runehammer going down and strategize for Sexson, gonna give some more options. Oh, Vital Arcana. I think this game is basically over.
Yeah, this is and at this point, if you didn't have a relic weapon in your market to merchant for, then I doubt you're drawing it very much here from the Lone Goat side.
Yeah, it's unlikely Lone Goat's got Sword of the Sky King hanging out somewhere in their deck, though that would be good right now. Yeah, but that Channel the Tempest, and that will actually end it. So, wow, Sexson pulls out a really unlikely win there, and we're going to see Temporal Control advance in this part of the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, that game was really compelling. There's a couple of turns there that it looked like Lone Goat felt, I have the luxury of playing around everything. Eventually, they're going to either run out of cards, or I'm just going to land the right charge plus Aegis threat, and there's no way to protect against everything that I'm doing here. That turned out to not be the case. Temporal Distortion just giving access to so much power and so much agency over the way the combat looks, and once the door shut, it wasn't opening back up.
Right. You had this opportunity, and it just turns out, once the Temporal Distortion deck really gets its claws into the game, they don't let go.
Yeah, because you get the cadence that the deck likes to get to is on my turn, use my power, draw a bunch of cards. Now on your turn, the ball's in your court. I have all this power available. All these slow spells that answer units are now available at fast, and going back and forth that way, it's really hard to overcome.
Yeah, fast harsh rule is especially brutal.
Yeah,
it just makes it so your charge units really don't do as much. It means that they can wait to see for maximum optionality, like maybe take some damage and cast at end of turn. Like there's a lot of things you can do there.
Yeah, and even lines like you suggested, like, well, why don't you just play the Ikaria after you attack if you're sure it's there? Well, Temporal Distortion makes that a lot murkier as well. Because you're just allowing them to play something, go to their turn, play something. They're so efficient with their power that a lot of your lines get cut out.
Sounds good. Let's see what we're on to next here, because it looks like this round might be wrapping up. But we do have some preview cards, because we have our Into Shadow campaign. It's going to be coming out this week, so that'll be soon. Let's take a look at our first preview card. I did promise that it had something to do with the Lone Goat, and I wasn't lying. This preview card is in fact goat related. So we've got Poaching Drake here. So the card here on, I guess, my right, I tried to figure out the space-time continuum here, is the actual card, Poaching Drake. And then the card here next to you is the goat that it creates. So this is a 4-cost 4/3 flyer. And on summon, you don't have to, transform an enemy unit with cost 3 or less into a 2/1 goat. Let's say maybe something like an Alessi or some other threat, an Aurelian Merchant. Like there's a lot of threats that cost 3 or less.
Yeah, and you're getting a 4-string flyer for 4, so we're not exactly talking about straining in terms of the size of the body that you're getting. Also, the 4/3 flyer lines up very well against a goat as far as the blocker is concerned.
Look at the art, right? It's just
look at the art.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit earlier about how modification persists and all that kind of stuff. One of the ways to actually deal with something that's been modified a whole bunch of times
is to goat them.
is to transform them. And you mentioned Alessi, Dawnwalker as well. These cards that can be hard to answer with conventional removal, but transform as a way of working around them. And you tack that on to a body that's not trivial for the cost. And you're looking at, I think, maybe a reasonable merchant target, something to add to an aggressive primal strategy.
Yeah. Like you said, 4-cost 4/3 flyer is already a pretty good ratio, and so adding to that you get to deal with a lot of pretty troublesome threats. It could remove opposing flying blockers if they have like a Valkyrie Enforcer in play, for example. A little harder to hit a Scorpion Wasp; those don't tend to stick around very often.
Right.
But so Poaching Drake, one of the cards from our Into Shadow campaign that we'll be releasing this week. We're going to have more preview cards kind of as the broadcast goes on here.
Few we've already shown through our various channels.
Yeah.
VAR has been.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's take a look at one of the deck lists. This deck list unfortunately is not going to be advancing, but I did want to take a look because we saw a glimpse of it. We didn't get to really see it play out, and I thought it was a really cool deck. This is Jerry Lanew's deck list that had a fair amount of relic weapons. It was kind of like big Praxis relic weapons, and it was a cool twist on an archetype that we're going to see a decent amount of it here on the top 32, Praxis, but a different take on that.
Yep. So we'll have that deck list momentarily.
And here we've got 3 improvised Rubblers and 4 Claw of the First Dragon. So the full 7 cost relic weapons. That's 49 cost of relics weapons, along with accelerants like Trailmaker and Aurelian Merchant. And World Beer Behemoth also does accelerate you to 7.
And I think going down this road is motivated in part by the multi-faction control decks that we're seeing, that we've seen a fair bit on camera thus far. Of well, if they aren't necessarily the best against relics or relic weapons. They have a disjunction they can merchant for, but it is a bit of a vulnerability, and the game is going to go on for quite a few turns for the most part. So playing Heart of the Vault and then going beyond that into Great Kiln Titan along with sort of this relic and relic weapon sub package, I think is motivated by trying to hang around these long games against decks like Primal Time, Justice Control.
And another thing that's really cool is it's got 4 copies of Great Kiln Titan. So the combo is if you flip a card with Great Kiln Titan, you get to play it for free. And if it's an attachment, if it's like a relic, then you get to do damage equal to its cost. So yeah, this deck is attacking on a different angle than most Praxis decks, and those Claws of the First Dragon and Improvised Robbers will put a real big beating against Temporal Control.
Yeah, and when you build your deck this way, you're giving out some cost obviously against fire aggro, where having these clunky 7s and 8s are not going to be particularly good. But if you're making a metagame call here that there's not going to be a whole bunch of Skycrag and Stone Scar, that the battle is basically going to be against other builds of Praxis or against 3-faction control decks, then it makes a lot of sense to try to go bigger and more powerful.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds like our next round is starting. We'll be taking a look soon here as we're trying to figure stuff out. All right. We're watching Temporal Control deck and there is an update about stuff. Not being so helpful in the hand, so don't worry about that.
Magic of live television.
Yeah, again, we are testing out the software. Our observer mode is. But Brady comes out ahead in the first. Out features while though actually looking at it, so that is a pretty big advantage.
Yeah, I mean the control decks here, obviously a lot of card drawing going on, and getting an early disciplinary weight is no guarantee of winning the game, but it can be very disruptive.
Again, despite all those robots, not a whole lot of Grenadine to play, plus additional Grenadine. So I think even though Brady
Aurelian Merchant, they're a very big draw. Just getting a 1/4 if nothing else. But Bradykin's hand not exactly great right now. A lot of expensive stuff, a lot of individual pieces of removal that aren't necessarily good against a bunch of Grenadines.
And Bradykin picked up a temple build that disciplinary way, but because it came from Merchant, as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, it does count as a part, so it's costly.
Also possible that disjunction is going to be aimed at the Zen Obelisk, because at that point now you have a 1/4 lined up against a bunch of 1/1s. You can block pretty effectively and force Dready to overextend into a sweeper like you left on top of your deck with a Hailstorm.
Killing the obelisk will certainly make it so Dready. I think a lot of it will also hit them more aggressively. Assembly line.
I mean, it's not like Dready's, leaving assembly line back in your hand for a bunch of turns, waiting for a sweeper that might never come. Sounds like a lower percentage play than just opening a sweeper.
And especially when you don't have a whole lot of action on all healthy robots, and
yeah, exactly. So, rocking a hard place. Nothing to be done about it.
And now, with already having no or you just fire it off on.
I would probably just do it onto the disciplinary weights with the intent of playing Channel the Tempest.
On the same weight.
Yeah.
Know how to. But that isn't exactly the kind of card.
No, it's not. But some of these are, yeah. Some of As far as draw threes go, it's more appealing to me than most.
So Brady can haven't fired off that first channel. Now flush with him, playing or Runehammer and take out Teacher. Partial. The world is kind of Brady.
I like catching in the Orc Runehammer there as your answer because once Dready plays an 8th power, the Zen and Obelisk gets an additional +1/+1. The Runehammer gets a lot worse, so that's a really good moment to line it up.
Brady can sitting behind Aurelian Merchant and again has the luxury of
Yeah, I mean, Channel of Tempest and big relic weapons can get the game over with pretty fast.
We're getting requests in chat for the loud.
I haven't heard it. I don't know how loud it is. Fortunately, please
channeling some tempests here. It's still safer to take out the Heart of the Vault at some point, though. Brady has left themselves open to taking a big hit from that Heart of the Vault. You know, if Dready had a torch, this could be pretty close.
Well, I think we're still on Dready's turn here with the Heart of the Vault resolving and such. Yeah, and harsh rule. You don't have to sort of trivialize any concerns.
Yeah, it looks like Brady not taking any chances here. And so next turn that Channel of Tempest would be lethal, right?
So it's hard to +1.
Yeah.
And then and plus any consideration.
Potentially one short, but the Auric Runehammer could finish that off at some point here, or you just run 2 Channel of Tempest in a row. Though that Obelisk does mean that even something as innocuous as a Granite Waystone still gets you into a pretty good spot.
Yeah. No, I mean this is not. You know, you can go back to back here on the Channel of the Tempest and try to win the game that way. You can't feel confident that Dready's on a 0%er to be able to kill you on the way back.
Yeah, like, and here you see Brady taking the conservative line because, you know, there's just no reason to take the risk.
Right, and paid off with a Hailstorm there, which can still play cleanup, allow you to get in your hit for 4, and then the second Channel of the Tempest the next turn is still good here.
So Brady I don't believe has played a power yet, so can actually Hailstorm and then hit with the Auric Runehammer, and that sets up perfectly the next turn Channel of Tempest to finish things off.
Right.
Torch here can knock off the Auric Runehammer, but that's not going to be quite enough. That leaves Brady still at 9 health. And it looks like Brady will advance to the next game. We're on game 1 still, so this match isn't over, but Brady ahead here in our top 16 round.
Yep.
And we're going to see this match reach its conclusion. We're going to get back as soon as the players have started because this is best 2 out of 3. Mm-hmm. And these players are playing single elimination. So we're going to see whether Brady can extend the lead and advance.
Yep. And, we don't have a look yet at the opposing deck list. Wondering what are the ways to sort of hang around with a deck that's playing Harsh Rule and a lot of spot removal and sweepers. Because right now on the surface, the matchup looks very challenging.
Yeah.
Particularly with Hailstorm being so good on top of the Harsh Rules.
So it looks like we're into game 2, and we'll see what Dready Mom's Spaghetti can do against Bradykin's Temporal Control deck in just a second here. Alrighty. Here you see Dready Mom's Spaghetti down a game, facing down against Bradykin, but leading off with Initiative Sands and potentially being able to curve out into some Marisen's Disciple against Bradykin's somewhat slow hand here.
Yeah, I mean, Bradykin's hand here is at some amount of risk of just missing power, but if he's able to draw anything at all, he already has 2 Primal Sigils lined up here, so he'll be able to cast the Hailstorm. Dready Mom's Spaghetti's hand is just extremely vulnerable to that card.
Yeah, well, because notice Dready Mom's Spaghetti is also missing, that name is insane, missing the 3rd power, or a 3rd power plus the Initiate, so you can't actually cast any of the forecasting cost cards, and if Bradykin draws a power, which they just did, bam, Hailstorm wipes out the Initiate, and Dready's all of a sudden watching from the sidelines. Oh wow, Bradykin not going for the Hailstorm here.
Yeah. why not squeeze out a little bit more?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
What's the risk here?
Picking up a Vital Arcana instead, which still can't quite cast. All right, well, Dready did hit a power here with Seed of Impulse. Unfortunately, it enters depleted, which means it does not immediately increase your maximum or your total power, your available power. So Dready's still not going to be able to play that Obelisk or either Marison's Disciple this turn.
And not willing to lose the initiative stands in combat here, so offering up these Gurnin, and if Bradykin were to block, I'm sure the torch would finish off. Looks like Bradykin happy to just take the hit.
If Bradykin draws a power, like they did, they might cast one of their 5-cost cards here. Dready's really hoping Bradykin doesn't have the Hailstorm, but Stronghold Visage is going to go a long way in extending Bradykin's health, and that armor adds up too. It makes those Auric Runehammers and Sword of the Sky Kings a little deadlier later in the game.
Yep. I mean, if you have the cushion at 17, you squeeze out a pretty big advantage over the long term having that card. So if you feel like you have the cushion that turn, get it set up.
Yeah.
Every extra turn counts.
The earlier you get it in play, the more it does. Here you see Bradykin go up and then Hailstorm just to prevent any shenanigans from occurring. But yeah, I think Bradykin's in really good shape here. Marison's Disciple from Dready choosing the 4/4 bug, which gets around Hailstorm. But, even if Bradykin has to take a hit or two, that's not that bad, right?
Well, Bradykin's hand's still a little bit unwieldy. You have the Vital Arcana that's basically your whole turn right now. You kind of want to find the way in this spot to be able to play the Runehammer because was missing a second Justice Pip. So there's actually a window here for Dready to do a little bit.
Thanks to that Xenon Obelisk, you're not only attacking past Aurelian Merchant with your 4/4, you're also getting to a spot where Hailstorm doesn't clear the board, and yeah, Dready's going to be able to deploy another Marison's Disciple this turn, presumably. Aurelian Merchant blocks the 3/3, and not too worried about Torch.
I like this line here. It's basically Harsh Rule or Bust, because with Rally plus Torch in hand, that's very likely to finish off the game, and Hailstorm's not really that great here. If he has, if Bradykin has 2, then whatever, you still have some stuff to work with.
So Hailstorm taking out both Marison's Disciples, leaving the Scarabs. Not going to be quite enough. Looks like Bradykin's going to go with Auric Runehammer to take out one of the 4/4s.
Yeah, this is a great window here for Dready to possibly finish out the game. I mean, the Rally, you have Rally plus Torch here. That does a lot. You have Obliterate as a potential leftover here, too.
I think Rally plus Torch is exactly lethal. So assuming that the Aurelian Merchant counts as 4 health one way or another, that puts Bradykin at 18, and then Rally plus Torch does 19. So Dready is actually going to force a third game if Dready goes for it. Maybe might be worried about Bradykin having some fast interaction, but that Rally wasn't looking so hot as a draw initially, but is looking really good right now.
It's also not going to get any better. I mean, that's
Oh wow! So looks like Dready went for the Obliterate line, which also does the trick thanks to that Torch. Though Dready is going to need to get a little bit of damage through next turn in order to finish things off.
Yeah, my concern with doing the Obliterate that turn is that the Obliterate's value is really flat.
Yeah.
And Rally is really good that turn, and no guarantee it's good for the remainder of the game.
So you would say it was Rally good that turn?
It was relatively good that turn.
And then the 4/4 is gonna rumble in here with Overwhelm. Desert Marshal looks like it might buy you a little bit of time, but thanks to the response window of Desert Marshal, you can actually torch the Desert Marshal before it has a chance to block if you desire.
But it looks like Dready declines.
And that's going to let Dready maybe play out a couple more threats, but yeah, at risk of losing to Harsh Roll now.
Yep, definitely. And that's, to go back to it, why I would have preferred to cash in the Rally on that one turn.
Yeah, the Rally represents 6 damage on that turn only, and Obliterate represents 6 damage every turn.
Now, fortunately for Dready, Bradykin's hand is really bad, so this may not matter.
Yes, it looks like it's going to work out just fine. Look, Dready is just letting us watch more Eternal here. We're getting squeezing a few more turns out of this game before the Rally still eventually finishes off. In fact, didn't even need the Rally.
Right, didn't need it. And I like the Torch there in response to the card drawing spell because you don't want the Waystone to show up.
Right, because you can't respond. Because one of the features of Eternal, we do firmly believe it's a feature, is that a lot of things aren't respondable to keep the game flow fast and snappy. You can't respond to a lot of beneficial effects. So it just means you have to anticipate what they could play and make your plays in advance of them.
I also think it's fine to shift the burden around to make the player with the reactive card do something in advance
Right.
sometimes. And I'm not the biggest fan of just sit back, sit back, sit back. I've got, all my resources available, and then I'm gonna pick you apart as you start doing things proactively.
It's less interesting to know they can't do anything about it than to have a little bit of doubt.
So I like to have the onus be on the player with, the Annihilate in their hand. Do I try to wait, and maybe if they play a unit weapon, then I get everything? Or if they have some way of giving their unit Aegis at a way that I can't respond to, I'm stuck with this Annihilate in my
Right.
hand. Actually make that decision point rather than go, 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 and then tag you when the moment's good.
All right, looks like we got game 3 ready, so we're going to head down to game 3. Alrighty, here we are. We've got Dready Momsketty facing down against Brady in game 3 of the Temporal Distortion against Praxis matchup. And Brady on the board first, which is a rarity with Aurelian Merchant.
Yeah, Dready's hand here a little on the slow side. Not sure if it's if this hand has sufficient staying power to hang around with this control deck, but it's definitely one of the slower and grinder hands that Dready can get.
Alrighty, so looks like we've got just the 3 assembly line tokens facing down against the Aurelian Merchant, and Brady you are paying a bit of a cost when you play a bunch of depleted power in your deck.
Yep. So the crest especially, the upside of being able to smooth there is really, really powerful. But you do get draws that you're really slow coming out of the gates as a result.
Xenon Obelisk is key in getting those Grendons past the Aurelian Merchant, but Disjunction really, really pulling its weight here.
And you can see Brady really leaning on Aurelian Merchant's presence on the table here in this matchup, trying to basically line up that card against as many Grendons as possible, force Dready to keep committing to the table, and then allowing the sweepers to catch up. So that 1/4 body here, a big part of Brady's game.
Yeah, basically all parts of the Merchant are really important to this deck. With fetching Temporal Distortion or Scorpion Wasp out of the market, being a 1/4 blocker, and the additional power helping you cast your expensive cards. And here you see Brady kind of rolling, getting a Sword of the Sky King, more strategizes, more Vital Arcanas, and getting into a spot where, really not concerned about what Dready's doing.
I think that turn I would have preferred to lead off with Vital Arcana, just get the clunkiest, most expensive one out of hand, and then give yourself more information on what you want to do with the strategize. But Brady still having a nice turn here as far as the card drawing goes, just chaining together a couple strategize, smoothing out the hand. Now with a setup here, multiple Hailstorms against an opponent who can attack, and then Vital Arcana plus Sword of Sky King to pull ahead.
See Vital Arcana putting Brady up to essentially 31, 29 plus 2 armor there. And then Hailstorm really wiping out Dready's chance of mounting an offense.
Right. And now trying to get the board cleared so Sword of the Sky King can start going straight at Dready.
And then Stronghold Visage plus Sword of the Sky King just means a recurring source of basically armor for the sword, making it able to mow down creature after creature.
Yeah, a lot of the elements of this control deck are in this space of, they are synergies. They aren't really what the deck is built around, but they do come up. And the Visage is a card just sort of playing because, you want to be able to protect yourself and pull back ahead when you get low. And if it happens to line up with a relic weapon, that's great. That's not the primary plan, but it comes up every once in a while, and it's coming up now.
Here you see a full 10 armor for Bradykin. Really going to be hard for Dready to chip that down. And in fact, Dready decides not even to bother trying.
Yeah, just tapping out here.
Oh, I can respect that for sure.
No question. No question.
Yeah, when your opponent's got Sword of the Sky King, 5 cards in hand, and 10 armor, it's going to be pretty rough to mount a comeback. So, yeah, it's a fine Sunday. Move on with your day. You made top 16. That's a great finish.
Got to shine on camera a little bit. Got your game win. Whatever. There's no reason.
We got to compliment your username.
Yeah, exactly. Laugh at it several times. That's not a bad use of a few hours on a Sunday.
Oh, for sure.
You just let that one go.
And so our producer is finding us another game. We've got plenty of matches still in progress, so we're going to see something sweet. And it looks like we're going to be hopping in momentarily. We'll get there in a second. Reminder that we've got some preview cards coming. Oh, this game looks wild. Like, are we going to be able to jump into this one? All right, so we've got a nice game coming up for you momentarily.
Sweet.
And we've got a campaign coming this week. We've got Twitch shops going. We've got expert commentary from Patrick Sullivan. We've got commentary from me. Like we're really rolling here.
No, there's a lot. There's a lot coming down the pipeline, and this is just kind of a dry run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean this is the run where it's okay that I mute myself by accident and have my sound, and have my sound be terrible for 8 minutes or whatever, which did happen by the way last match.
It's actually really good for the archives, you know, as the tournaments get higher stakes and the commentary gets more professional. It's actually nice to have in the archive. I can say from experience, it's nice to have things in the archive that show you where you came from. So
right.
Like I actually like this as part of the range.
We started from the bottom and then we previewed Poaching Drake.
Right. And now we're
all right.
Wherever we're going. Are we good?
All right, let's head down to the game.
Good job, Matt.
And as promised, look at this thing. This is the Cambrai Mirror. Both players actively using Seraph. So Seraph is your 3/4, of course. It's bigger on these boards because of Stand Together to generate random justice or time units and double their stats. And so that's how you have the Bereaved Stranger. That's how you have let's see what else is clearly like we have the the 9/3 over there. You know, all these cards generated off Seraph. Reality Warden probably generated off Seraph. Yeah, Resolute Paladin,
which has been silenced but now has an Aegis.
Right. So where this game goes from here, I don't know. I mean, we've got Sheriff Marley, there. Sheriff Marley and the deputy. Someone got that joke past there. And we're seeing Mystic Ascendants just getting in there. Drunken Seraph is currently up a game against I'm So Bad. And here we also butt up against the unit cap. So one thing worth mentioning is there is a 12-unit cap here in Eternal. Yeah, we're playing a digital card game. It's just really hard to represent 40 things in play.
And I think with I'm So Bad having the active Seraph here, the line broad. I mean, the board's obviously very complicated, so the details matter. But broadly, what you try to do here is offer up some attacks where Drunk Seraph has to trade with something that you have. Maybe it's the Reality Warden this turn. Maybe it's something else. To just kind of grind through some of your stuff, replace it with a Seraph activation, and just eventually run Drunk Seraph out of stuff to do.
And, with multiple Sandstorm Titans in play, nothing is flying either, so you got a little bit of a morass. But there's a couple ways this game could end. One is that someone could hit just an insane Seraph hit. You know, there's a lot of cards that really have huge impacts. The other is that I think if I'm So Bad gets up to 20 power, which not as unrealistic as it may sound, they can play and activate Martial Ironthorn in the same turn, knocks all the Aegises off, then play a second Martial Ironthorn, activate it, because the ultimate on Martial Ironthorn for 15 is to kill all your opponent's units. So we've got a lot of possible ways for this game to end, and it looks like Drunk Seraph is actually not even taking the bait, is unwilling to block any of those units coming in.
Yeah, because you're just giving I'm So Bad just too much free value off the Seraph that's going to be almost certainly activated anyway. You want to take a couple hits here. Eventually, you have to stop. You have to start tendering some blocks. But if I'm So Bad is just sending out a couple of dorky 2/2s and 3/2s, and you're at 15, you got a little bit of cushion here to take that shot.
And Drunk Seraph actually has the advantage of not having a full board yet, so potentially could be Seraphing, though it looks like it is silenced as well.
Yeah, there's only one Seraph here is active. It's only on I'm So Bad side. The other one is silenced, so that's why I'm So Bad I think is really incentivized here just to, present some attackers, force Drunk Seraph to do something. It doesn't even really matter what, and then keep adding to the board with a Seraph. You can grind out that game that way, and as you mentioned, if you hit some like really crazy spike, certainly that's a way to close out the game as well.
Well, it is somewhat funny that Drunk Seraph really wishes they had some like 0/6s to block these tiny things and not actually get them off the board.
Yeah.
Because look, now that Seraph's getting activated, and what are we gonna hit? Ooh, this is another Marshal. This is starts as a 3/3 and has +2/+2 as long as you've got other units wielding weapons. A Rakano Sheriff.
It's actually also not a. I mean, when somewhat what you have along line as Reality Warden, it's actually not that bad of a hit.
Yeah. Oh, striking snake formation. This gives all of Drunk Seraph's units killer, and there's an overwhelmed Mystic Ascendant getting in for a ton, but mostly just this lets Drunk Seraph take down a bunch of I'm So Bad's units, including, I'm sure, that Seraph.
Yeah, that's the big win here. I mean, you know, the first thing that you do in a spot like that is just check for how many units have overwhelm. Is this going to result in a kill? If not, you at least get, you know, quite a bit of board presence and stabilization for your trouble, and most importantly, as you mentioned, getting that Seraph off the table, because I'm So Bad's cadence for the last couple turns has just been sort of attack with some stuff that's annoying to block, and then activate the Seraph anyway. Now you're out from under that, so you can kind of, now the Mystic Ascent that you have access to might actually be the best way to grind out an advantage on these.
Yeah, and the striking snake formation, one of the mirror breakers here. This is an awesome card in this board state, and it's swung this game from I'm So Bad to way towards Drunk Seraph here.
Although he's you know, got to be mindful here of getting killed on the crackback here.
Yeah.
Yourself, some ability to block.
Though at 36 health, yeah, you got a little bit of wiggle room here.
Yeah, it's unlikely. There is a lot coming back, and it looks like
that Reality Warden, like even Andrew Baxter would say that Reality Warden is thick. Like,
yes.
It's a 17-17.
It's not up for debate.
Yeah.
And also, you know, first of all, leave some stuff back to block this turn, so there's no way you randomly get killed. Also, you can keep your powder dry. You don't have to use the killer this turn.
Right, it's not going to go away.
Right, those units are available down the road. So I like, get the most problematic cards, get those off the table first, but you don't have to overextend yourself into exposing yourself to some unnecessary risk.
Ricano Sheriff doing some work here, and I'm So Bad still has a bunch of different options. Great Parliament might be waiting till 16 power to get to Great Parliament. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do.
Yeah, the Cambrai mirror matches get into some bizarre states where, as you mentioned, the goal is, all right, well, I'm going to Great Parliament for 4 or 5 owls, or I'm going to try to set Martial Ironthorn and activate all in one turn. And that's because the board gets pretty sticky. I mean, these decks are very good at blocking. And so it's not uncommon for the game to kind of get into this spot where the way to win is going way over the top with something that costs, you know, 16 or 20 power.
Yeah, and Sandstorm Titan does this too. The fact that they have endurance and they most of the time bounce off each other, though in this case they didn't, means that it's really difficult to get headway. And also notice that Reality Warden has lifesteal. Yeah. that brings I'm So Bad up to 52 health. Drunk Seraph still at 18. Drunk Seraph just drew a Seraph. Ooh, we're recruiting again here. So Seraph hits. Ooh, Jack. So Jack is going to silence the Ricano Sheriff, knock off a bunch of its buffs because those buffs were keyed to its card text, and you end up with a 12-8 quick draw here.
Yeah, and that Sheriff there was both a huge threat on the table and also just a way of improving overwhelm units. So and Jack is not a shabby attacker as well, for whatever that's worth with I'm So Bad at 52.
Well, eventually they're getting there. Also, of note, those Sandstorm Titans have exited the battlefield. So we've got 2 flying owls now. We're going to see Great Parliament potentially from both sides. That actually might be a pretty big edge to I'm So Bad, because if they can Great Parliament up to 3 owls here, then maybe they can start putting together offense in the air.
But you're also looking at, you know, these owls on Drunk Seraph's side have been buffed, so you're looking at 4/4 owls versus their 5/5. So even if you're a little bit ahead on count, it's unclear if you're really ahead overall.
Also, when we said 52, we now meant 22, because when you're in the Cambrai mirror, you're not talking about small hits. Like that was a 30-point health swing there.
And it looks like on board here, I'm So Bad with only 23 available power to available strength to attack with against the opponent at 31. So, you know, Drunk Seraph's shields are down a little bit here, just the check to block with, but you have to feel pretty comfortable that you're okay here.
It was really that striking snake formation. That's what broke this game wide open.
We'll see if there's one on the other side here, because now would be a really good time to...
Man, it's matchups like this that make you want to put ridiculous cards in your
Oh,
market.
of course, yeah. It's
like,
speaking of.
Well, so Passage of Aeons is part of maybe a 2-step plan. You Passage of Aeons to knock off the Aegises and silence that Seraph, because it will affect all of the opposing units, and then you use Martial Ironthorn to play it and then ultimate it. So
right.
we've got a potential plan here. Owls, deputies, Mystic Ascendants, Owls on the other side. Oh, Drunksoff only can play a power and get 4 owls from the Great Parliament. Let's see what Seraph turns up. This is the gigantic warp dinosaur to 7/5. So now it's they played a Goliath. See, like, I love that Seraph lets us play with cards we would not normally see in ranked.
Yeah, it's so much fun to just have some of these random, not even close to playable in high ranked play cards be part of what actually appears.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Wow, World Bear Behemoth up to 3. See, we said it didn't take 3 hits, but this is the kind of game where the World Bear Behemoth has attacked now 3 times.
Yep. These 2 decks are throwing some pretty crazy haymakers at each other. So.
And the advantage has swung multiple times. If we had some kind of, let's say, bar which would represent advantage, it would have swung.
Yeah.
Because now I think Drunksoff is firmly ahead, but I'm So Bad was clearly ahead before. A lot of it has to do with whose Seraph is active.
And there's still I'm So Bad still drawing to a bunch of really great cards here also, even if a little bit behind. And as long as the Reality Warden is unchecked here, then you're cracking back for 18 with lifesteal. So even if you're behind, you have a little bit of breathing space. And at some point, Drunksoff probably has to answer that.
Well, the play to Goliath could help. You can just line up a double block on this gigantic Reality Warden, but you do have to watch out because the huge lifesteal, and looks like that Mystic Ascendant also lifestealing in both cases thanks to Commander Sword or Sword of Unity rather is my guess here. The silent Seraph goes down, but the active Seraph is not getting anywhere near combat here. Both players' life totals are just swinging drastically every single turn.
So even though you're gaining so much health here, there's still the crackbacks are so intense that there's still a risk of getting killed, even if you cushion your own health total.
Ooh, another Sword of Unity here for I'm So Bad. So I'm So Bad still not out of options. Could use Passage of Aeons at some point. Could just slam that sword onto like the Reality Warden and just make it even larger. Though Martial Ironthorn plus Sword of Unity does have the advantage of giving your Martial Ironthorn Aegis, which means that there's a pretty good chance that the Martial Ironthorn survives this next turn. So if I'm So Bad can hold on for more turn, Martial Ironthorn can go ultimate.
Right, you need to cobble together some line over the course of several turns, and so the easiest way to do it is to have Martial Ironthorn out to begin with, but you don't want to expose that card needlessly to removal. But if you're able to line it up with the ability to grant Aegis in the same turn, then you're pretty well covered. And then hopefully can use all of your power efficiently next turn, be it with Passage of Aeons or Martial Ironthorn's activated power, whichever the case may be.
And thanks to all of those owls, I'm So Bad has to attack with the Reality Warden.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll just take too much flying damage here and just be dead.
Which is why I thought I'm So Bad might try an alternative line of just Passage of Aeons and say go. You're not facing against a Seraph activation that turn. Because the Reality Warden is so large and has lifesteal and Aegis, it's unlikely that Drunksoff is going to be able to attack.
So now we're going to see all the owls fly in, Jack getting in there, and then the World Bear Behemoth doesn't really want to run into gigantic Martial Ironthorn. And notice also just the course of the game, a lot of the previously Aegis units have just died.
Right.
Drunksoff used to have a board of entirely Aegis units, thanks to counterplay back and forth. Now only about half of them have Aegis, so I'm So Bad might be able to get in there, but I'm So Bad's missing the 15th power.
Yes.
Does not actually have the 15th power for Martial Ironthorn, so this is going to be a really big draw.
That's part of the reason I also thought about the Passage of Aeons play is you don't have it rolled up. It's not like you're guaranteed to be able to do it.
Seed of Progress, not the 15th power you're looking for, because it will enter depleted here.
But this is still not a bad setup for I'm So Bad, because if you play the Passage of Aeons, although I suppose if you play the Passage of Aeons, the owls with Aegis are just lethal here.
Yeah, and that means that Martial Ironthorn has to attack in order to give I'm So Bad a bit of health. They don't, and those 2 owls you just send them in. You don't even want to play and activate Seraph, because if you hit Sandstorm Titan, then you actually kind of you put yourself from winning to not winning.
Yeah, I mean, there's some respect here for Desert Marshal, but I think just attack first and see what happens. Very likely to be lethal, and it is.
So Drunksoff takes the game, and that actually will advance Drunksoff. They're take that match. It's best 2 out of 3. They won both the games, so they're in the top 8.
Yep.
They finished their first 2 rounds. They made it past the 32, made it past the 16, and now we're in top 8.
That Combre mirror match is really complicated because it simultaneously has these elements of, all right, what's the macro strategy? What are the cards that matter? And how do I actually go about winning the game? And often it's Surroff or something big out of your market. But there's also like the actual tactical play on the table, and what units are you prioritizing? What's your health total there? Is also part of it. And I think the macro plan there of set up passage of Aeons rather with Martial Ironthorn was really good, but there were some elements of what was actually happening in combat there that I think slipped away in the last few turns.
That was really good analysis. I was just thinking about how the Combre mirror is combricated. That was mainly what was
be a lot of this,
going
right?
through my head.
It's going to be years and years of this.
Oh yeah, you this is what you've signed up for.
Okay.
That was good analysis, though. I assume.
Okay. Are we ready to go down the next one? Or what?
No. We've got a preview card. So
okay, great. Let's do that.
That will conclude the round. But let's take a look at another preview card from Into Shadow, our upcoming campaign. We've got Waystone Titan. So this is a 6-cost 5/7 charge, and when it hits the enemy player, you get 6 power this turn.
Yep. So you get a sweet rebate, but you really use it to stack additional charge units. You got to figure out a thing to do after combat that's productive for the rebate that you're getting. But in theory, you're getting basically a free 5/7 charge.
Yeah, if you've got to play this on an empty board, imagine your opponent goes like Harsh Roll, and you just go Waystone Titan, hit you, play another 6-drop, like let's say a Relic Weapon. Wham!
Right.
You're really getting them.
Yeah, you can get some really big swings, and there's a lot of Explorer Sentinel payoffs as well that this card sort of touches as well. And also, I think it's just kind of a fun thing to play to hit people and then do something awesome after you hit them.
It hits the enemy players. You could put like an Ice Bow on it and just ping them for 1, get 6 power. Like there's some wildness you can get up to.
I mean, you can kind of play the card face up like as described, and there's also these sort of backdoor combo applications that you just alluded to as well. So this one's I think this card's super fun.
Yeah, I think it's quite sweet. Let's take a look at another preview card. We've actually got another one on deck here in just 1 second here. And reminder that Into Shadow, this campaign, is coming this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one I'm pretty excited about. We've got a card which I've played, I think, more than most of these campaign cards. We kind of the difficulty with campaign cards is you don't have a ton of room in the file, but you want to balance a lot of different kinds of play. So this card gives you a very different aspect than the Waystone Titan. This is Shakedown. So here we have it. It's a 1-cost spell. It lets you take a card with cost 0 or less from their hand, and it has Nightfall. So this card is a disruptive element, but because it has Nightfall, both players are then drawing a card and taking a damage. So it plays very differently than a lot of cards of this caliber.
Yep, but 1-cost discard spells have a pretty long history of showing up in ranked and competitive play. A lot of it depends on just how reliable it is, and I mean this hits a ton of stuff. The merchants are going to be, I think, a very common target for this. And if you're doing the whole Nightfall, part of the issue that comes up with discard spells is you draw 1 on turn 6, and they've already played everything.
Right.
But if you're doing the Nightfall thing, regularly your opponent is still with 5 or 6 cards.
Your Rindra, your Nocturnal Observer also get active.
Right. So I think this card has a longer shelf life than most discard spells if you're actually doing the Nightfall thing. And then also, often like drawing it in a spot where it's dead, well, it's still better for you to make it Nightfall than not. Yeah. So you have that as to raise the floor a little bit. And, on the opening turn of the game, this is going to have a ton of targets, and I think merchants especially are going to be really common to hit with this.
Yeah, I do want to clarify it is non-power though.
Right.
You can't snipe power out of their hands.
Right.
That would be I think
that would last literally 1 game.
Yes, but I've liked Shakedown. There's a lot of cool things you can do with this card. We'll leave it up to the audience to figure out what those are exactly, but I have found it fits into a lot of decks that traditionally don't want effects like this.
Yeah, for sure. And the Nightfall strategies are kind of light on things to do on the first turn. I think that's one of the reasons they have not been a big player in high ranked play, and having a really good proactive play on the first turn I think helps a lot.
Yeah. So Shakedown, another card from our upcoming campaign, and we're excited. The campaign's also a lot of fun. Like you do get to play through the themed matches and the different games and play against the AI with different bosses, and it is cool.
Yeah, it's a little bit outside my purview, but I know that there's a lot of emphasis put on like hitting the story beats and making the campaign narratively compelling, and it's not just all right. We'll crank out 25 cards and then we'll figure it out on the back end how we're weaving it all together. It's a really integrated process. So I think the campaigns have been successful in large part because they're really narratively compelling. They explain and explore the world in a way I think that really resonates.
Yeah, and as we go through these cards, because we're previewing, if not all of them, a lot of them today, well, we're gonna see some cool story beats as well. So those will be in later preview cards. So hitting back to our tournament, we have finished our first 2 rounds. We've gone from 32 to 16 and now 16 to 8. So we have 8 players remaining here in our Shadowfall test event. Only one can claim the crown. The crown comes with prizes.
Yes.
But this is a preview kind of what our tournaments are going to look like, as we move on towards Worlds. We'll get in later in the broadcast to like the road to Worlds and kind of what that means. But this is us testing out our tournament infrastructure. And speaking of which, we actually even have a match. So well, why listen to us? Let's just go back and start watching Eternal. Whoop, and Matt's getting us there. So we've got a bit of a skeleton crew going on here, and we're gonna figure out the smoothest way to do these things.
Very much a Sunday morning crew.
Oh yeah. Let's get down to the match.
Let's head on down.
All right, welcome to round 3 here at our Shadowfall test event. I'm Luis Vargas here with Patrick Sullivan. Wow, our pictures down there look way better than we do right now.
Yep.
But we've got here Lysix playing a Rakano kind of deck based around Amelie, Rizan, Ikari, all the powerful Valkyries, facing down against Andreas playing Praxis midrange. Ooh, we even have the Teach of Humility, and a bunch of the Trailmakers along with Lunar Magus. So a pretty wide board here, and Andreas is not concerned about Harsh Roll, at least not because Lix is on, at the very least because Lix is on 4.
And also your hand is what it is. I mean, you're not, there's no real way to play around it. So Lysix has a really nice 4, 5, 6 already rolled up here with the Auric Runehammer into a Millie to Rizan. We'll see if that's going to be enough to stabilize this game because Adris is putting on quite a bit of pressure.
Yeah, and so Temple Scribe here for Andreas, hoping to hit something that can pressure. Obelisk being, of course, the #1 card.
Yeah, that's the big hit here. Although going this wide, and if Lysix doesn't have Harsh Roll, this might be good enough, even if you don't find something like that in Obelisk.
So the question is, do you just flood the board? Andreas decides to pass the turn. Did not want to deploy the second Lunar Magus or the Grenadine Tank. And that, because Lixus had a Millie instead of Harsh Roll, that didn't work out great. That it was a perfectly reasonable judgment call.
Yeah.
Based on information at hand, but Andreas is now going to be facing down a Millie, which is a lot more problematic, and the Rizon's going to go such a long way in stabilizing. Though, actually, I don't think Rizon has lifesteal yet.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know why bother leaving the Grenadine back in hand, because how is the game going to come down to that?
Well, Lixus did draw Harsh Roll, so Andreas is the one with the Grenadine. You wouldn't have had a Grenadine. Andreas is laughing all the way to the bank.
That is true. And all the points matter here because you have Nightfall considerations.
Yeah. I think at this point, Lixus is really deciding, do I cast the Harsh Roll or do I just play like a Rizon or an Ikaria, maybe leave up Crown Watch tactic. That is a +3/+3 on lifesteal fast spell, so that can go a really long way in stabilizing as well. But with 6 cards in hand, I'd be really tempted to Harsh Roll here.
Yeah, it's so and with Nightfall, Adris is getting 2 shots at it next turn, and so many cards in the deck just are very hard to beat, even if you do pick up some health via the tactic.
Yeah, Adris really looking for Obelisk, hitting 2 power, hitting a power and a Seek power. So not getting there on the Obelisk, and noted that Lysix left back a Millie. Normally you would attack with this every single time, but Lysix would rather have the 4/8 blocker than a 1/1 blocker.
Right, and it also what makes it more suspicious is, well, first of all, you didn't activate the Ikaria that you could have activated.
Right.
And also, one of the reasons to leave back a 4/8 instead of a 1/1 blocker is Torch, but Torch is going to be hard to beat anyway. So it's really a loud signal that it's Crown Watch tactic that's involved, but who knows if that's even on Adris' radar. It's not the most commonly played card.
Right. Lysix now firmly in the driver's seat, now has a lot of really good options here. And Adris still has cards they can draw. Obelisk chief among them. Aurelian Merchant also could do the trick. but Lysix is the one who's kind of going to dictate the pace of this game from here on out.
Right, and that's why from Lysix's side, you got to be mindful of, I'm still beat by a lot of stuff here. So you might want to take some preemptive action there. For example, you could just attack with a melee and Crown Watch tactic to get that cushion. That cuts off a lot of the draws that could potentially kill you. If you're worried about something like Obliterate or, Torch plus Nightfall.
Yeah, like just cashing in the 7 points of health here could just be the safest way to proceed. Even though you're using a combat trick for no gain other than 7, you're actually casting a pure health gain spell.
Yeah, but there's a lot of ways in this spot that you get killed outside of combat. So there's no guarantee that tactic protects you from some of the cards that can beat you. So I like firing it off now to get that cushion. And also, this hand is quite good. You imagine from Adrius' side, you would have seen something like Heart of the Vault or Zen Obelisk by now were in hand, so the hand's probably not that good. And if things ever hit a crisis, you still have Harsh Rule plus powerful stuff to rebuild with.
And from Adrius' side, right? There's this like reason to wait on Harsh Rule and to not play everything out. But once Lysix starts playing everything out, if you're Lysix, you're like, they don't have anything left in the tank. They're not gonna slow roll. You can't just wait on things when I'm winning on board so much. So I think Lysix is going to conclude correctly that Adrius just doesn't have a whole lot left.
Yep. It's easy for us to say, seeing the hands, and you don't want that to poison the well too much, but we've hit the point where Adrius had to play out everything anyway, because you're just not beating the board. So it calls the question, how much are you really willing to concede to Harsh Rule here to try to play around it? Can you beat the secondary cards you're worried about here? And it doesn't look like Adrius is going to be able to.
And Adrius still drawing power. The Sandstorm Titan is going to prompt some kind of response from Lysix, but I've got to assume that the Winchest Merchant has something to find us, a Vanquish or a
Vanquish's Sword.
Vanquish's Blade, yeah. One of the two. Sandstorm Titan gets Vanquished, and I think so do Adrius' hopes here. Amili and Rizon are going to kind of close out the game. Just this one hit, I think, puts it out of reach for Adrius.
Even the best draws, Zen Obelisk, Obliterate, that happens to be there, those will not catch up for me.
Yeah, and Adrius is, their units are pretty outclassed by all these Valkyries, and I guess getting the attack in with the Lunar Magus makes sense, but I don't think that's going to be enough to turn the tide here. Lysix falls to 14, but has an attack for 13 in the air. Not lethal this instant, but when the deck that goes bigger is also ahead, it really makes it hard to imagine what can happen to come back.
Yeah, the route here typically for the less powerful deck is punking out with some sort of direct damage effects, but with Lysix gaining a lot of health along the way, that's not good.
Yeah, Rizon and Amili both actually do a good job of putting you ahead and putting your opponent in a position where they can't really come back. The good news for Adrius, though, it's best 2 out of 3, and this is game 1, so you're going to be able to try to mount a comeback here, even though you're down a game. Have you ever been down a game before?
All the time.
How do you deal with your opponent having so much momentum once they win game 1?
Yeah, you just gotta. You have to just sort of buckle down and try to reestablish momentum. That's how momentum works.
Yeah. The battle for momentum is a classic one when it comes to sports, competitions, really everything.
Right, yeah. That is what it comes down to, is what recently happens dictates what is about to happen.
I say we're building up a good amount of coverage momentum here,
yeah,
I think, as it were.
Especially when it relates to, like things like trading card games where there's no athletic element to it at all.
Oh, right, definitely.
Yeah. Right. That's where you see, I think, momentum at its most impactful.
Right. And speaking of momentum, we're on to game 2 here.
Great.
All right, we just saw Adrius down a game here, and this game 2 hand not looking the most compelling. This hand has some beef in it.
Yeah.
So Adrius really looking to draw. Well, Power Stone is a very good draw there.
Yeah, you're gonna have to chain together, and also just the number of time sigils you get is part of this because the hand is so intense on those requirements. But Power Stone's a really good draw.
Oh yeah, Adrius could just rattle off a time sigil, and then their opponent would never know they had any sort of stumble.
A hand that bad.
Yeah.
They would never know.
Well, Seek Power will do the trick. I mean, that lets you torch the Icaria, you play your time sigil. Nothing looks amiss from Lysix's side of the board here.
Yeah, for as bad as Adrius's opening hand was, I'm sure they're thrilled to be in this spot now.
Yeah. Their hand is still extremely thick. Like, there's just currently 24-24 worth of stats. And that's after casting a Sandstorm type.
But, you know, now you're in that magic place where, you know, power's good and non-power's good.
So, yeah, and the Temple Scribe into Power Stone, that'll do the trick. And this is the kind of hand that actually plays fairly well against Harsh Rule. Just any of these cards can prompt a response by themselves.
And also, your additional power, your acceleration is not tied in cards like Initiate of the Sand or Trailmaker, where if your opponent does have Harsh Rule, you're out everything.
Lysix getting on the board, Bullet Shaper joined by the Windchest Merchant, finding Vanquish to kill that Sandstorm Titan, but Adrius has more where that came from, I'll tell you that much. So, Alhead, the first to hit here, and one good thing about Alhead is that it really just makes it so anything you draw afterwards is monstrous. It just becomes like unreasonably large.
And these are ways to outclass cards like Rizon and even Icaria.
Yeah.
They aren't actually the biggest units for their cost. And some of the time effects allow you to go, and some of just having cards like Predatory Carnosaur, you can just go a lot bigger. And as good as those threats are, you know, they don't line up very well against Killer or doubling of stats or things of that nature.
I mean, Alhead is basically Icaria. Every card you draw is like Warcry equal to its already stats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the downside, of course, if Alhead dies, that effect stops, whereas Icaria, you know, once you lock in the Warcry, you lock in the Warcry. But Alhead is really, I think, a card that's really coming into its own. We're seeing more Alhead, and it does put you pretty Alhead on board.
A lot of these games do come down to just, you know, the specific numbers. And, you know, particularly with Icaria, just the number of 6/6s and beyond that you can generate, that's a big part of beating that card. And the number of, you know, I can play an individual threat, and that itself prompts a Harsh Rule. That is part of it too.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very well. Look, 12 Predatory Carnosaur. Granted, Adrius can't cast it quite yet, but it's gonna be great when it does come out. And even with that Rizon and Windchest Merchant play, I think Adrius is gonna have enough time to do this. Also, once you have double Alhead, if you draw something, it doubles, then doubles again.
That was a really great draw here for Lysix and Vanquish. This is the obvious thing, removing one of the threats, but I think a prize here is to be able to rise to the challenge for a 6-1 Orc Hammer, and then you can actually make 6/6 that way. And if Adrius puts more onto the table that is beyond the range of the Orc Runehammer, now you have Harsh Rule, and your position's really good.
Also, Adrius is not on a ton of health, so really going to need to draw a sigil here. Does indeed do that. So now that Predatory Carnosaur, either one actually, will take out Rizon. And it looks like Adrius just going for the gold here.
Yeah, that's a risky get. You know, you don't have the 7th power rolled up here, and that card is exposed to Predatory Carnosaur. So we'll see if Lysix gets paid out.
Wow, Lysix does, and also has multiple options here. You look at the top of Lysix's deck. That is an end of the story. It has Warp, kills all units, and yeah, Lysix is just going to not turn down that value.
Yeah, that looks great. And now you're in the spot where you've got offense and defense managed here. If Adrius adds a lot to the board, then you have your Harsh Rule, and if it's kind of a modest turn, then you can play a card.
Yeah, and so this is going to end up. So here, the next couple turns, you're going to see Alhead, followed by likely Icaria the Liberator, followed by Predatory Carnosaur to trade for Icaria. We're going to have some real back and forth here.
Yeah, and both players are going to go fairly low as far as these things go, too, in these exchanges. So I think this game's shaping up to be very close.
Yeah, even though Adrius is at 2 health, they're going to attack Lysix down to 12. Lysix is going to go Harsh Rule into Icaria, and it's really going to come down to what Adrius has in the market. Do they have an answer to another flyer in the market?
We're going to find out. You know, they'll have 5 power to work with.
And Sandstorm Scarf is the answer.
Predatory Carnosaur, too.
But not quite enough time for the Carnosaur. Oh, man. So, okay, Sandstorm Scarf, we're getting there. They're going to get to play Lunar Magus and Sandstorm Scarf in the same turn.
Beautiful game.
Oh, yeah. This is pure Eternal. This is exactly what I tuned in for.
And Adrius is going to fall down to 1 off that Snipe Altar, but 1 is not 0. And in fact, it's going to pull up quite a bit because of the Lunar Magus.
Also, Lysix hit a couple power in a row, and then it's gonna be in a spot where Adrius gets the first crack at their deck, and They might end up ahead here despite the life total disparity. All right, power into power. This is one of those games where the first person to draw out of it is likely going to win.
And both decks are just packed.
Mono haymakers.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Power for Lysix. Ikaria can't get past the gigantic Aurelian Merchant, but it has endurance. You might as well try.
Yeah, there's nothing to play around. If they had Torch, just torch your card anyway.
Yeah, like this is the kind of attack that you might as well test. Oh, Predatory Carnosaur. The third Carnosaur coming down for Lysix, and this is going to put, or Andreas, this is going to put Lysix in a spot where they have to draw Harsh Rule or Rizon, I think.
Ikaria.
Oh, Ikaria. Starsteel Daisho.
Oh, that's a lot. Is that enough?
Oh, that keeps them at 1 health. They get to take down the Carnosaur, take down the Lunar Magus, and get attacked down to 1 after the, or I guess they could take down the, if they wanted to take down the Aurelian Merchant, either way. They could take down two of Lysix's cards here. Starsteel Daisho keeps them they're at 4 health, 3 health plus an armor. Lunar Magus for the lethal Nightfall.
That's going to be a lethal Nightfall trigger here, and we'll be going.
Oh, this is the best way to go to game 3.
Perfect.
Nightfalling your opponent to death is just the best.
But that is kind of representative of in the first game where it's, play out your stuff and risk the Harsh Rule. This build of Praxis is a little bit different because of Nightfall and because of there's some go wide elements. The little points of damage do add up.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these builds of Praxis is just you're trying to be overwhelming on the table, and a point here doesn't really add up. But when there's Nightfall considerations, when you've got these Grandins coming off your Waystone, you actually have to start doing the really specific math to see if the extra stuff you're putting on the table matters or not.
Yeah. All right, the players are into game 3, so let's head right on down. All right, Lysix led things off, and with looks like a crest or a seat, and Andreas has the turn to Teacher of Humility, but it is likely going to be eating a torch here, as it tends to do.
Well, Lysix's hand here pretty clunky, 2 power away from playing anything proactive.
Well, Privilege of Rank, for being an uncastable, still a good draw, because now if Lysix draws a power, they can privilege and immediately hit their next 2 power drops.
Yeah, everything's rolled up. You already have 2 fire sigils to work with, so casting things for the game should not be challenging.
Also, Lunar Magus, Andreas' only play, certainly going to run it out. Nightfall against an opponent who's stuck on power is actually a severe disadvantage.
Yeah. But also, can't really afford to wait.
Yeah, for sure.
His hand is pretty chunky too, so.
And as it turned out, Lysix drew a power immediately anyway, so had you waited on the Lunar Magus, it would have been a disaster. So Lysix on all Rune Hammers might have to make a somewhat power inefficient play and just vanquish the Sandstorm Titan here.
Yeah, not a great use of an Auric Rune Hammer here to attack the Lunar Magus. So. Yep, power inefficient, but not the end of the world.
Lunar Magus is also kind of tech against Auric Rune Hammer. If they have one in play and you play a Lunar Magus, the Nightfall damage pops the Rune Hammer before they can do anything.
It cuts both ways. It's really attractive to kill, but it's also a good response to one.
Yes. Here we're going to see the Harsh Rule, and now that Lysix, that Privilege of Rank really going a long way, Lysix now able to kind of take advantage of all their powerful cards in hand. They do have a lot of weapons in hand. Triple weapon, not exactly where we want to be, but that's still a lot more action than what Andreas has going on. I also love just running out a melee against these Praxis decks. There's so few answers they have to it.
Yeah, it was a vulnerability I encountered a lot while testing Praxis. It's just, they play a Reality Warden. Wow, that is just a lot of numbers.
Stats matter, Stats are a real thing. Oh, Predatory Carnosaur plus Torch is a nice way to finish off a melee, though.
Yeah, and Lysix's hand right now not with an answer to a 6/6. You can cobble it together through Rise of Challenge, but
yeah, and you can chump with the Granite Waystone, the Grenadin you get off that. Though Andreas also using Granite Waystone to their advantage, their Grenadin likely to be sold to the market by a cold-hearted Aurelian Merchant for something a lot more appealing. Though who are these people trading your nice Sandstorm Scarves or Carnosaurs for these little Grenadin?
I know there's a lot of suckers out there.
Yeah, it just feels like they can't be profitable, right? So Lysix now deciding what to rise to the challenge for. That's the main decision here. Because even though Starsteel Daisho, it's a relic weapon, can attack twice, on the first attack into the Carnosaur, it dies. So it doesn't actually take out the Carnosaur, despite kind of effectively dealing 8 damage.
Yep. That is a weakness of Starsteel Daisho. It's really good against a lot of small units. It's really good against a player with no units. It often does not line up well against someone with one big thing, and that's where Adrius is at right now.
So Lysix running out of time here. You can see the time start to tick down. That you don't have infinite time. You have, I think, more than enough to make decisions, especially on most turns. But it will eventually prompt you, and that will let Lysix say, okay, it's time to cast Rise to the Challenge.
And we're starting to run into the rope a little bit more than we have previously. This is, for a lot of these players, this is the highest stakes match that they've ever played of Eternal. And so even these decisions that could be simple or maybe rote, if you were just playing the rank queue, become a lot more complicated now.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to mess up, especially in a featured match, and these players are being very deliberate, and I think for good reason. All right, it's we've got a battle here of Carnosaurs versus Valkyries.
and Adrius is very clearly feels best thing to do here is just keep getting predatory Carnosaurs against this deck that's just a bunch of 5/5s and 5/4s.
All right, so Carnosaur is going to trade for Icaria here, opening the door to attack with Carnosaur, Temple Scribe, and Merchant, and then that Grenadin might be jumping the way of that Carnosaur.
Yeah, want to protect your health toll here. Give yourself as many shots at drawing to Harsh Rule as you possibly can.
Whew, Icaria Warcry, another Icaria. That's a 10/10 Icaria coming right off the top for Lysix there, and that's going to be very difficult for Adreus to beat. There's no Owlhead here. There's no 12/12 Carnosaurs. How is Adreus going to take down that Icaria?
I mean, you have to go around.
Yeah, you have to send and then trade both Carnosaurs for Icaria here. This is where the relic weapons really start to clean up.
Yep. And now, as mentioned before, that Daisho is very good against a lot of small units. Well, now we're here.
Daisho is going to be able to eat two of Adreus's units, and then that Granite Waystone able to protect it from whatever is remaining.
Yeah. So you for example, one attack that you can do here is Daisho to take care of the Temple Scribe plus the Aurelian Merchant, and then you have your 1/1 Grenadin lined up against a Trailmaker after the fact.
Yeah, that looks pretty good. Though it looks like Lysix is just going to go for the Runehammer, maybe take out the Aurelian Merchant to start with, trade for the Trailmaker, and then you basically are using the Auric Runehammer to preserve armor on your follow-up Daisho.
Right, and it's a little bit more power efficient to do it this way, and also you would like to trade off an extra Auric Runehammer rather than the Daisho.
So also remember, Lysix still has an Icaria Warcry floating. At some point, well, there we are. The Bullet Shaper is going to be a 7/8, and this is exactly where the Rakano player wants to be. Daisho takes down the Temple Scribe, takes Adrius down to 8, and then Bullet Shaper. Actually, Adrius is actually facing down lethal right now. Temple Scribe, one of the better draws, though.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get a lot of stuff onto the table and try to chump out of the relic weapon.
Not going to do it, though. Lysix advances past Adrius to the top 4 here of our test event. And that was a hard-fought battle. I did not think Adreus was going to win game 2.
No, I did not think so either. But a little bit of extra power draws there, and was able to squeeze out the third game, though. That Icaria coming immediately after the Icaria. It looked like the Predatory Carnosaurs were going to line up really well, but having to cash in 2 to take care of the other Icaria, just too much wind out of the sails, and at that point, the relic weapons were dominating.
Yeah, I mean, basically you want Carnosaur to eat their thing and leave you with a 6/6. You don't want to trade 2 Carnosaurs for one of their things, leaving neither of them back. That just does not work out well.
Right, and that forced into position where these Auric Runehammers and Daishos that weren't lining up well against the 6/6s. Well, now all the 6/6s are accounted for, and you're looking at 2/1s and 1/4s and 1/1s, and the relic weapons are really potent against boards like that.
And another thing that was cool is both games 2 and 3, the player who started with 2 power and looked like they were going to stumble ended up winning that game because they built in these like prevention mechanisms like privilege of rank, for example. That made it so even though Lysix missed 1 power drop, once they cast privilege, they never missed another drop.
Yep.
And you saw Adreus drawing Power Stone and Seek Power. So it's important, especially if you're watching, to look at these deck lists and think, like, how did players, make up and for the fact that there's a possibility that you miss a power. They have a lot of backstops.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. A Power Stone is definitely a high ceiling. You sometimes just go 2, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Privilege of Rank is a lot slower, but it's a lot more reliable. It can't be interacted with, and you're converting your 1 card into 2 cards. And for decks that are trying to, play power up to 7 and 8 and make plays along the way, converting 1 card into 2 is really important to be able to do all that.
Yeah. All right. We're looking to see if there's another game ready for us. Until then, you get to have the pleasure of our company for whatever that is worth.
Awesome. Do we have anything to show? I don't.
We're gonna let Matt figure out a game while we
Cool.
figure out where we're going next. All right, so looks like we're going to be on to a preview card next. So we're going to let Matt figure out what card we're going to preview. Again, all these preview cards are for our campaign Into Shadow, which is coming this week. So if you're a fan of the single player campaigns, then these are the cards that you'll be seeing in that. And we're going to be taking a look at one of them just momentarily here. So, all right, let's take a look at Maul. This is a 6-cost card. It's primal, and it deals 2 damage to the enemy player for each card in their hand. This is a card you would cast targeting me, just so we're
Quite
clear.
a bit. It actually came up in the last.
You have, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I think this is another card that could be in the spot of maybe it's a thing that you facilitate via markets against, much in the same way that we've seen Black Iron Manacles in people's markets for just a way to haymaker the person who's sitting around and not doing anything. This card does much the same. And then I do have decks saved on our design client where we test the new cards. That's called Night Maul. It's the Nightfall cards along with, because you see they are also drawing 2 cards a turn.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're both doing stuff and you're trading off and you're attacking and whatever, turn 6 rolls around, they still got 5 or 6 on it like all the time, and then plus they've been taking damage along the way with all their Nightfall stuff, and so this plays clean up.
Nightfall helps you hit your power drop, so you got 6 to cast this. Right?
It
all works. And if you maul and are dealing 8, you got to be pretty happy about that. And I've taken 14 from this card.
And
so
I think there's a lot of cards that we've shown, and I think Boar is a really good example of this as well. Of okay, that's cool, and I can imagine spots where that would be good, but how do I go about putting this card in my deck unless I'm really bending over backwards to facilitate it? And now with the merchants, it's like you can imagine, if this is good 10 or 15% of the time, and the times that it is good, it's incredible. Well, you can engineer that 10 or 15% of the time as one market slot. So I think it gives a new context to, Boar was a card that got shown and was like, well, they're playing with a bunch of relics. Great, but I don't know if that's going to be happening game to game. And now it's a fairly ubiquitous market target for people who are playing Fire. And, the cards like this can land in much of the same spot.
And it's the sort of thing where when the metagame is right, maybe you'd play this card and you'd be looking at it trying to evaluate that. But then you add in Genève Merchant, right? The Primal Merchant. All of a sudden it's like, yes, this is exactly what I needed. I needed to fill out a slot for when I'm playing against these temporal control decks that think they can just sit around and draw too many cards.
And Primal is light on that kind of role, like the Stone Scar people, they have Black Iron Manacles, and other factions have ways of punishing the person that's sitting around not doing anything. Primal, for the most part, you have a couple of negates. That's really the best thing that you can get. I can go get a backlash, counter their Channel of Tempest sometimes, but that's not even that's not necessarily like winning you the game, because once the game's gone on for that long, even if you counter one Channel of Tempest, you're not necessarily in a winning position. You want to get something that wins the game when it comes up, and this card is likely to win the game in the spots where it's good.
Yeah. So this is Maul. This is from the upcoming campaign, and a card I have died too many times and likely will in the future. We're going to get set up with another preview card here, so we got more to go. Our round just ended, so we're going to be back with the top 4 round. There's a couple-minute break to give the players a chance to grab something to drink, make use of the time however they want.
And if you're into sort of the psychic value of things, of that sort of analysis, Maul, let me tell you, the times where you kill your opponent with it, your opponent was pretty sure they were winning the game.
Yes, as someone who has died to this card many times, it not only makes it so you lose a game you thought you were winning. I thought I was stone cold lock. I'm crushing you. It's all great. I'm drawing those Jotun hurlers.
Right.
It also makes you feel like you deserved it. Because when I lost to that card, it's like, I deserved that.
Right.
I could have done things differently to prevent this. I did not.
That's the same reason that the 7/10 warp ambush on top.
Yeah.
I sneak one of those into a lot of decks still, because it's the psychic value of winning with that one is just through the roof. So,
all right, let's take a look at our next preview card here. Speaking of dealing 2 damage, well, Signal Flare deals 2 damage, exactly 2 damage. This is a 1-cost spell, so it's not a fast spell. It deals 2 damage to any target, and you scout.
Right. So the obvious point of comparison here is Torch, and this is both slow and deals 2. You get a scout for your trouble, so if you're actually successfully killing something with this, it's often a lot better. Torch also is arguably the most powerful card in Eternal, full stop. So a card can maybe be a little bit more situational than Torch, or maybe a little bit weaker, but still have plenty of room to be played in tons of winning decks.
Yeah, and this is a card that you may also want to market for example. It's a way to get you an early play that also still lets you scout, lets you look at your top card, decide whether to put it on top or bottom. You're already playing 4 torches.
Yeah. I mean, that comes up a lot where, torch in theory is a really nice market target, but you don't necessarily want to remove a torch from your deck. It's really powerful, and so you just want to play 4. But you like to have a target in your market that gives you some amount of immediacy. You don't want to have just 4 anti-control cards or whatever. Sometimes you're under duress and you need to both play something and kill something in the same turn. And Signal Flare makes for a very nice market target for those considerations too.
Yeah, so you can shoot up the Signal Flare. I don't even know what's getting flared. It looks like a dragon of some kind. Though this is
a Minotaur. That looks like a Minotaur.
Oh yeah, okay.
The horns.
Yeah, but there's a tail though.
Yeah, a beast? I don't know.
All I know is it looks.
Talk to Devin about it.
Yeah,
Devin will know.
Yeah, it looks large enough that Signal Flaring it probably won't take it out, but it looks like it'll at the very least distract it.
Yes.
So Signal Flare, another card from our upcoming campaign, and not every card has to be this gigantic card either. Like we've got our fair share of 6-cost game enders, but having a range here is important, and that's kind of what Signal Flare provides.
Definitely. I mean, we want the micro campaign for everyone to be able to open up the card set and say, yeah, it's 3 or 4 cards I'm really interested in. No matter what kind of player you are, we want to be providing that. And so there's going to be some people who are really drawn to the 6 and 7 cost units that are really powerful, and there's some people who are going to be, show me the 1 cost interaction. That's what I'm really interested in. And so we try to have a range of that stuff going on in all those releases.
Yeah. So getting back to the tournament, we're in our top 4 now. We'll be getting down to the game as soon as we got that set up. It's been single elimination. We started with 32. We're down to 4. We've got more action coming, and these players they have to get through a lot of players to get here.
Yeah, but this moves fast.
Yeah,
this part is really exciting. As I've gotten, like, I'm older with a family and just allocating a full day to, it's just not realistic. But what we're doing right now, I mean, we're going to be able to squeeze through this in probably under 3 hours. It's a really fast event.
All right, so our game is ready. So we're going to head down and watch Brady versus Cardinal. Alrighty, here we've got round 4 of our Eternal Testament. We've got Brady on Temporal Control. We've seen Brady win a couple games. This is the first time we've got Cardinal on the featured here, and looks like we've got the mirror.
Management here of the top and bottom with the crests here are going to be really important, because the merchants ameliorate it to some extent, but one of the ways to get into trouble in this kind of matchup is just to draw too many cards of your anti-unit measures, and you want to make sure you're not on a bunch of hailstorms and such.
So it's gonna really hinge on who can kind of convert their harsh rules into more ways to draw cards or interact with the opponent.
And the relic weapons matter a lot too, because there's some spots where if you set things up correctly, maybe with a player Aegis, that a relic weapon can overwhelm even an opponent that's generating other advantages. And if you time it poorly, it ends up just, you deal a couple damage to the player, and then it's killed at no cost for the other person.
Here we see Find the Way as well. Find the Way also a pretty important part of the equation. And we've got some stats, by the way. Our producer just told us Bradykin's currently 2-0 against Cardinal. So
yeah, that's actually kind of the joy of doing these kind of events, is we can just mine the data from their random battles in the rank queues, see who's gotten the better of it thus far.
Yeah, we got a whole dump of stats. We have each player's lifetime win percentages, and if we've got some time as we figure out who our players are who are advancing, we might kind of delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, although the win percentage in queue is kind of a complicated stat to analyze,
that's
because
true.
A lot of people hit master and then want to go for number 1, and a lot of people hit master and then want to goof around with decks they otherwise wouldn't play.
Yeah,
and so that distorts. yeah, me too. So that distorts the win rate in both directions.
All right, so we see Desert Marshal doing what it does best in this matchup, silencing Aurelian Merchant.
Yep. Not a whole lot else to do with it. This is another card that commonly gets marketed away, but shutting off the extra 1 power, whatever. Might as well do it.
And one of the interplays that we'll see here is often the second relic weapon to the battlefield is actually the one that has an advantage. Because you go Sword of the Sky King, hit them for 8, and they go Sword of the Sky King, kill your Sword of the Sky King. That's good for you.
Yeah, that's a dimension because both these decks are very light on units. So the relic weapons very rarely have this role of managing a bunch of units. They're more about attacking the player directly. And in those kind of battles, you often want to be going second.
You see Jotun Hurler onto the battlefield. This is the first time we've talked about this card a lot. It's actually my favorite card in Eternal, and it's the first time we've seen it hit here. It does a couple cool things. One is it provides you actual 2 cards in your hand for merchant purposes. You can sell either the Snowball or the Hurler himself, or you can use it to ping their 1 health units, or you can just play Jotun Hurler, and it's a 5-cost 4/4. On the table, it's still a 4/4.
Yep. We talk a lot in design about each player's leaks, the cards they can't help themselves from playing. Jotun Hurler has to be at the top of your list.
Oh yeah, I've played a lot of Jotun Hurlers. Every time you play against me and you see my hand size go up by 1, you're like, I guess I'm playing this Initiative Sands on turn 1 for no reason.
Mine is unquestionably Veteran Mercenary. I can't let that one go.
Oh yeah, Veteran Mercenary is one of the more fun ones. The number of times you've played your Mono Shadow deck, it's evolved with every release, is pretty nice.
You know, we just keep printing Shadow cards.
That is true. So here we've got a bit of a bog here. We've got Aurelian Merchant, silence on both sides, Desert Marshal, silence on both sides. But basically what's going to happen soon here is we're going to start seeing Temporal Distortions plus Channel the Tempests. And, you know, for being a matchup that has a lot of long game cards, this deck does close pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, it pivots around and can deal a lot of damage very quickly here. And part of Bradykin's structure here, part of the setup, is doing this all with a player Aegis. At that point, you're pretty well covered against any of your relics being blown up. You have some cover against Channel the Tempest, and it's a trivial thing. It's not what the deck's really built around. You're just doing it through the Waystones, but it is part, in this kind of matchup, it is part of the progression towards the end game, is trying to do that.
And Temporal Distortion here for Cardinal. Cardinal has Island's Choice up ready to counter a Channel the Tempest, but unfortunately for Cardinal, Bradykin does have that disjunction. So pretty good chance that's going to be used on the Temporal Distortion. And you mentioned Bradykin having a face Aegis. Well, Cardinal does not have a face Aegis. That would protect Temporal Distortion from disjunction.
Yep. I mean, the face Aegis is one of the best ways to cover yourself against these decks long game. And so when they square off against one another, that's a really crude but effective way of sort of analyzing who's out in front.
Oh, wow. Snowball coming up clutch here. A fast Snowball in response to disjunction, knocking off face Aegis. Going to be followed up by Channel the Tempest here to hit Bradykin for at least 6, maybe more if some Echo cards get drawn.
Yep. Not the end of the world for Bradykin, though.
No.
You know, you're still keeping your relic weapon around, and his leftovers here are really potent, but not a bad way to manage a bad situation by Cardinal.
Bradykin may want a Wisdom of the Elders in response to try to draw an Unseal or some other way to interact here.
Yeah, any way to fight back here would be incredible, but it doesn't look like he's got it.
But on the other hand, Bradykin did kill that Temporal Distortion, and these decks frequently play just the one in the market. So yes, they have disjunction to get their own Temporal Distortion back, but Cardinal may not have distortion in play, and depending on how the game goes out, having a distortion, letting you use your power twice each, kind of each turn cycle, is a really big advantage.
Definitely.
So here, Cardinal, lots of options. Sword of the Sky King having trouble breaking through here. You see an 8/2 Sword of the Sky King on Bradykin's side. Cardinal could play one, but there's kind of like a slog of units on the ground here, just keeping the relic weapons back.
Yeah, Bradykin not even remotely interested in trying to attack one of the units. Purely defensive now. Try to squeeze out as much as possible out of the Sword of the Sky King. Yeah,
next turn probably going to take that Aurelian Merchant and kind of go from there. So Cardinal's going to kick things off with the Wisdom of the Elders, see if maybe they can find some other good options. Another thing that you're going to see happen here is Cardinal's going to keep up that Island's Choice as much as they can.
Yep. I mean, you want to sort of you want to be power efficient, you want to be progressing the game, but Channel and Tempest is of course a major concern at all times. So as long as Cardinal can leave up 3, worth going through some pains to do that.
And I think Cardinal looks ahead here just based on the cards that each player has in their hands. Bradykin may not be firing off that Channel of Tempest for quite some time out of respect for Island's Choice, but Cardinal has Vital Arcana and double Sword of the Sky King, so access to a lot more action. And Aurelian Merchant fetches another Temporal Distortion, so Bradykin now on the double power plan, but without that Channel the Tempest resolving, that doesn't have that much action.
Although it lowers the opportunity cost on Bradykin's side to be stuck with the Channel Tempest in hand, because you can try to go for it over the course of 2 turns potentially, and overwhelm an island's choice, which is much harder to do when you're only having access to the power on your own turn. But still, I mean, you gotta like Cardinal's position here. A lot of resources to work with, certainly ahead on cards, and Bradykin's most powerful resource left over, that Channel the Tempest, is covered by the island's choice.
And even the Sword of the Sky King in play, really not doing all that much. Though Bradykin, at this point, if they want to leave up Island's Choice, they're paying a big cost, but at least now they're kind of getting it unlocked here. The Bradykin goes for Channel, Island's Choice hits it, and now Cardinal no longer has to keep up power every single turn. On the other hand, Bradykin does have a Stronghold Visage kind of powering up that Sword of the Sky King there. So at some point, Cardinal does have to worry about that.
Yeah, and the at some point you either have to remove it or keep deploying units to work around it, because Bradykin has enough units there that your own Sword of the Sky King is unlikely to be able to beat the second attacker to get rid of the first one.
So what Cardinal kind of needs to find, which is funny because this card is not usually good, is Harsh Roll. Harsh Roll would actually be good for Cardinal here.
Although Bradykin, you can see leaving a couple of units back in hand in the Desert Marshal and the Scorpion Wasp, and I think the logic here is they don't add a whole lot in terms of pressure, but if you get hit with Harsh Rule, they're pretty good insurance in terms of protecting your relic weapon from one of Cardinal's.
So this is a good draw. Wisdom of the Elders into Aurelian Merchant Disjunction. You can use Aurelian Merchant to go fetch something good from the market. You can also disjunction back your Temporal Distortion, or just disjunction the Sword of the Sky King.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like Cardinal's going to disjunction the Temporal Distortion, which I think it makes a lot of sense given how this matchup goes. But if they could see Bradykin's hand, they might not make that play.
Yeah, but you're so far ahead on cards at this point that just sort of cover yourself against multiple cards getting played over the course of 2 turns makes the most sense.
And then here we're going to see Desert Marshal taking out that Sword of the Sky King. So this turn sequence is going to work out really well for Cardinal.
Yeah, that's a big win. You were able to get rid of that sword without deploying a card of any value.
Yeah.
And now, you've got many more cards in hand against an opponent who's really straining to do anything.
Yeah. Cardinal still has that Vital Arcana and still has the Aurelian Merchant, plus his Jotun Hurler. As we all know, just really one of the linchpins of this matchup.
Bradykin's board and hand is not better than a Jotun Hurler. And Cardinal has many non-Jotun Hurler cards to work with.
We're going to see maybe a Find the Way or like a Permafrost. So one of those cards, cashed in for Temporal Distortion. This one getting back, a disjunction that's going to get back a Temporal Distortion most likely.
Or it's just insurance. I mean,
against a future one, you're right.
Or a Sword of the Sky King, whatever.
Exactly. We might see Jotun Hurler coming down here. Oh yeah, the showstopper. What can Brady do? You can't get past the Hurler.
Right. What do you think the ad is here?
Aurelian Merchant does give Bradykin a live draw. Taking a look at their market, they have Great Parliament. This might be a spot where you just go for Great Parliament and hope your 3 owls can take things down.
Well, nothing else in that market amounts to very much, so I don't think it's the most high probability play, but I think everything else is a 0 probability play. So there you go.
And Cardinals in a spot where even if they needed to use a bunch of Permafrost, they'd still be able to deal with all the owls. So it looks like Bradykin went for Disjunction to get back an 8/13 Sword of the Sky King, because armor does persist, and that Stronghold Visage gave it a few armor over the course of the game. But that Disjunction Cardinal takes out that Sword of the Sky King, just like you said.
Now Cardinal very well set up.
Crest, putting another crest in the bottom. It might soon be time to play their own Sword of the Sky King. Cardinal might be in a spot where they're happy to get that going.
I like this block a lot from Bradykin. I mean, you've seen the Jotun Hurler, so you have to believe that the Snowball is available to take care of the Desert Marshal. Really good time to put that in front of a multi-unit block.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Cardinal didn't just Snowball to begin with, but maybe they want to leave up the Scorpion Wasp here in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. You still have a 1/4 back against a 2/1, so it's not like, it has to be Snowball to have a good answer.
And here you see Bradykin, 40 health, 1 armor, about to have a Face Aegis perhaps with the Cobalt Waystone, and still just getting whittled down because Cardinal cast enough card draw that they're able to kind of attrition Bradykin here.
Yeah, and Bradykin's kind of been floundering here with, you see the anti-unit measures in Scorpion Wasp and Desert Marshal. those cards have moments of being good, particularly against the relic weapons, but by and large they underperform, and that's where Brady is stuck right now.
Vital Arcana from Cardinal, giving access to more cards, and kind of as we've seen before, card draw snowballs pretty heavily because you draw Jotun Herders, and you end up drawing more snowballs.
Yep, and these decks are not exactly putting the other person under very much pressure, so it's to hang back.
But Bradykin did find their own Vital Arcana, and we saw an Island's choice there for Cardinal, but it's on top of their deck. They did see it off of Scout. Ooh, into Strategize. So Bradykin's kind of getting rolling here as well.
Surprising given the sort of the way the game is shaping up right now to see Bradykin take a Visage. I wonder if the plan here is to try to just run Cardinal out of cards.
Yeah, just hope that you can end up in a spot where you're at like 70 health and
they just
slash
can't
armor, and then they can't actually finish the game.
Yeah.
Thing is, Sword of the Sky King does a lot of damage. It's just in chunks of 8 is pretty hard to stop.
No, I agree that it seems unlikely, but I wonder if that was the kind of underlying logic.
Well, Brady can also put back a harsh roll. It's not like that was going to do a whole lot of work here.
For sure.
All right. Cobalt Waystone as additional layer of protection for Cardinal. That Sword of the Sky King chunking in. Brady can really looking to draw Channel the Tempest, but doesn't know that Cardinal's got that Island's Choice ready.
Yep.
Another Sword of the Sky King. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out, because Cardinal is going to play their Scorpion Wasp here, which makes sense given the information they have. But that means that follow-up Sword of the Sky King is actually going to let Brady can deal with Cardinal's Sword of the Sky King.
Yeah, and with cover, with the player Aegis now, and with the 2 Visages, I mean, this is going to be a very, very hard Sword of the Sky King for Cardinal to get at. You basically have to use the Snowball to break the player Aegis and then find an answer. Yeah,
this is actually going to be pretty tough because Cardinal could snowball the Scorpion Wasp and hit with a Sword of the Sky King, but because of the Stronghold Visages, that actually wouldn't do the trick. Bradykin is at 10 armor, now 12 armor. So Bradykin might actually close out this game. This might be a comeback.
Yeah, that Visage is now doing a lot of work. I mean, it's hard to imagine Cardinal being able to manage this with relic weapons.
Yeah, Cardinal's going to have to find a Channel the Tempest or something. Oh, there's a channel, so we'll see if this is enough, because Snowball can knock off the face Aegis, and then Channel can hit for like 6 or 7. So Cardinal might be throwing out Sword of the Sky King as a deal 8, but then it actually can't get past the Scorpion Wasp.
Right,
so
that's the other issue here. And next turn you have access to 16 power, not 17, so you can't play Sword and Channel and Snowball all in the same turn. And if you're picking between 2, I don't know if you can do it.
Somehow 17 is the key. You needed 17. Also, Brady can do an Unseal. Unseal's going to counter Channel the Tempest.
Perfect. What a comeback.
Wow, yeah, Brady can manage to string together the exact right cards to defeat someone who was in, I think, superior position. Unseal counters Channel the Tempest. Now Cardinal's in a spot where they've got 1 or 2 turns to draw an answer to that sword. They might even have to throw their sword into play as just like a gain 8, and that's just not going to be effective.
Yeah. Really impressive stuff by Brady. This game is looking dire.
Wow, Hailstorm not going to do it. So Cardinal forced to play Sword of the Sky King. They could actually Hailstorm first and use their sword to hit Bradykin for 8, but those Stronghold Visages, they added up. And they were the difference maker here. So Bradykin's still in all blanks, but that Sword of the Sky King, just getting it done here.
Yep, pulling up to 10 armor now, so even a Sword of the Sky King off the top wouldn't do it.
Yeah, basically Cardinal has to draw a unit to block with. Maybe an Aurelian Merchant will do the trick.
It needs to be 2 cards. You need to draw a card. You need to find a unit that draws a card or replaces itself somehow. It needs to be multiple cards.
Wow, and Cardinal does not find it. So Bradykin wins game 1 here in the Temporal Distortion Mirror, and that game did not go the way we thought it was going to.
And it came down there on the key turn of, do you play the Scorpion Wasp out there to block the Desert Marshal and try to make sure that the armor stays high on your Sword of the Sky King, or do you leave it back as insurance in the event that they have their own relic weapon and you can block and maybe draw a sweeper and catch theirs on the way back? Made the call there to block, and that opened up the window for Sword of the Sky King to take care of the other one. And with Stronghold Visage, that Sword of the Sky King was not going to get touched, especially when backed up by a player Aegis.
All right. So that was an exciting game 1. We're on to game 2 here, so we're going to head right back down. So Bradykin versus Cardinal, Temporal Distortion Mirror. Bradykin up a game here in round 4. This is the top 4. We've got 1 round left after this. And both players kind of developing their board here with, Find the Ways, Aurelian Merchants, the crests that help them scout. So no decisive plays quite yet, but Aurelian Merchant, the first play for Bradykin, and that's one of the better cards in the matchup.
Yep, definitely, and you can see it very fast there. Just get rid of this Hailstorm, doesn't do anything, and go get a Vital Arcana to start the card draw engine rolling.
Cardinal just drawing 2 and playing more power. Hitting your first 8 power drops is pretty important in this matchup.
Definitely.
we even saw a turn that might have hinged. As it turned out, Bradykin had to unseal, so it didn't matter, but Cardinal needed 17 power and had 16. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, these often it's a lot of hurry up and wait, go, and then have a battle over 1 or 2 turns over a lot of different cards, and the difference between 9 versus 10 versus 11 power, like, it adds up in those spots.
For sure, and both players having cards like Vital Arcana and Stronghold Visage means there's a lot of incidental health and armor gain, which will put them in a spot where there's not going to be like a sudden Channel the Tempest end the game. Both players are high enough health that it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I like the role of the Visage here because it looks like kind of an anti-unit measure. But in this kind of matchup, where you would imagine it's not very good, you get to set up kind of these deterministic spots of, well, I have a player Aegis, so they can't touch my relic weapon that way, and I have enough armor, and there's not enough units on the other side of the board where they're not going to be able to whittle down the armor. So even though it just kind of looks like I'm randomly gaining some health, what I'm actually doing is building up a spot where they can't touch my Sword of the Sky King, and that's what we saw in Game 1.
You win the head-to-head Sword of the Sky King matchup, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Even when your opponent gets the first hit, if you have an 8-10 sword and they go hit your sword down to 2, your sword then hits them back.
And we saw it come into play earlier for Bradykin in the tournament playing against just Torch Obliterate decks where, they got low.
Yeah.
They've stabilized the game, but it's by no means a lock, and that card just pulls them out of the range of the non-interactive cards that are harder for them to manage.
So Bradykin hitting with an Auric Runehammer here, and we're at a spot with double Auric Runehammer, Sword of the Sky King. Bradykin does not have a lot of card draw, so just taking this opportunity to get in 4 or 8 damage off this Auric Runehammer, something that they, may not have been able to do otherwise. Cardinal with an end of turn Scorpion Wasp. Note, you don't want to ambush the Runehammer because it's invulnerable to damage the first turn, but the end of turn Scorpion Wasp will threaten it. Thanks to the Stronghold Visage, though, Bradykin wouldn't even lose the Auric Runehammer.
Yeah. And the game, it looks like Bradykin's plan for, similar decks is basically a lot of stuff bounces and trades, and it's hard to get much traction. But if I can win the battle over relic weapons, then you're really going to strain to do anything.
So Bradykin up to 7 power here, not at the critical 8 to play Sword of the Sky King yet, but still has more Auric Runehammers. And this is the kind of game that's a little interesting in this matchup where you have access to a lot of your weapons and removal, but not your card draw. So you just kind of have to go on the offense, and here you see Bradykin just pressuring with these Runehammers.
And you saw last turn a disjunction from Cardinal getting rid of the relic weapon, but Bradykin's hand is so long on relic weapons that's just fine. Go ahead.
Still, Cardinal landing that first Channel the Tempest has to put them in a really good spot here.
I still question in the long term if they're going to be able to manage the relic weapon hits. Bradykin really would like to draw an 8th power here to enable Sword of the Sky King.
Yeah, they might just be disjunctioning back the Runehammer here. Looks like they're going to decline to do that. But given that Cardinal has a face Aegis, maybe the disjunction was used well there. Maybe you just want to save it for Sword of the Sky King.
Yeah, I think if you're that outclassed in terms of the number of cards that Cardinal has, the best thing for you to do maybe is just try to make this a game about Sword of the Sky King and hope that Cardinal can't answer that.
Disjunction, gonna get back that Runehammer now, I suppose. And it's a 4-3 again, thanks to the previous armor. And Bradykin still now on 6 power. Because remember, one of their power was coming from that Aurelian Merchant. Yeah. So they're even further away now from casting their 8s. And if they can't pressure Cardinal enough with these cheap relic weapons, then Cardinal's going to pull ahead with multiple Channel the Tempests.
And as you can see, often when someone's floundering in this sort of matchup, it's because they're not finding enough card drawing and they're finding too much anti-unit measure. And you see Bradykin's hand here, 2 Harsh Rules and a Hailstorm. Not a whole lot to do with those cards.
Cardinal able to just play out a Channel the Tempest, play out another power. They're at 10 power versus Bradykin now on 7. Still not quite enough to get things done. And ooh, do you keep the depleted 8th power on top here?
No, I think you can't just play Seek Power and say go. That doesn't strike me as a winning line. And if you don't draw a power next turn, you're probably drawing something you can play. So.
Yeah, there's not that many more 8s though.
Yeah.
I've said that before. Bradykin here under pressure. Cardinal. So one of the things Cardinal's trying to do here is they've clearly got an advantage in this game, but they have to figure out how could they lose, and let's keep the game in a state where I don't lose to even something kind of outside the norm.
And I think with no disjunction in hand, although there is an Aurelian Merchant, I think another thing to consider is, can I go about my business and do whatever I want to do, while also leaving enough cards in my hand that I can use Channel the Tempest to answer something like Sword of the Sky King. And if you put some units onto the table, it's not the most pressure, but you can at least prevent the Stronghold Visage from accumulating so much armor that you randomly lose to a 8/12 Sword of the Sky King that you just couldn't happen to answer.
Yeah, so Cardinal going to play out 2 Aurelian Merchants to fight against relic weapons. They will eat a Harsh Rule, and it looks like Bradykin did leave that Seek Power on top, so they decided to go for the guaranteed 8th power here.
Sure.
Cardinal on Channel the Tempest as a threat, on Island's Choice to stop opposing Channel the Tempest, and on all those ambush units, your Scorpion Wasps and your Desert Marshals, in order to stop the opponent from killing them with a relic weapon. So I think Cardinal, now that they've hit that Temporal Distortion, they're going to leverage all their cards very nicely here.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have everything covered. You have the Island Choice here for Channel Tempest. You have enough dorky little units to cover you against a big relic weapon hit. So Cardinal really in a commanding position now.
Yeah, the 2 Owls coming down just to put a clock on things, but not even really crucial to Cardinal's game plan. If Brady can cast Harsh Roll, I don't think Cardinal would counter it even if they could.
Yeah.
Cardinal deciding whether they want to run out a Merchant or a Scorpion Wasp or something else, but looks like the Desert Marshal just for an additional clock value. Brady can hits for 10. Do they just play Sword of the Sky King now? They do.
Yeah. And you have enough units in play to cover you against an opposing relic weapon attack.
Yeah, and at this point, Brady can best play is Harsh Rule and then hope that they don't die next turn, which unfortunately for Bradykin, they will, and that's going to push us to a game 3 here. Cardinal going to get to smash with the Sword of the Sky King, put Bradykin down to 4, and then Channel the Tempest will do the trick. Or Bradykin will just potentially concede here that Channel hits for an additional 1 thanks to the Snowball. And that'll do it. The Crocodile comes out, signifies that Cardinal has won that game, and because it's best 2 out of 3, we're going to be heading to game 3 here shortly.
And I think that you've kind of seen Stronghold Visage play as a swing card in both games. If the game is going to be about relic weapons, then Bradykin looks like a clear favorite because it's so hard to counter a Sword of the Sky King with your own when they're picking up bits and pieces of armor. But it's also a card that doesn't draw cards and doesn't really do anything.
Right.
So if you can manage the relic weapons with your own units or with copies of Disjunction, then that's one more card that doesn't really do a whole lot. So if the game is going to come down to relic weapons, then there's going to be a lot of pressure on Cardinal's side to either have enough units in play to manage it that way or to be able to find their Disjunction and try to turn that Stronghold Visage basically into a dead card instead of something that makes a relic weapon an unassailable threat.
All right, let's head to game 3 here and to close out this top 4. So we've got Bradykin versus Cardinal. Bradykin on Find the Way and Cardinal on, a very slow hand.
Yeah.
Even for this deck.
Right. not being able to do a thing until 8 is, oh, sped it up.
Yeah, though Cardinal does have to draw the second time influence, but I think you still just leave the Vital Arcana on top and just hope things will work out.
It's the card that you just merchant for the first. Yeah, I mean, you're a little bit on spec, but I think the card's just so good in the matchup generally, you've got to keep it.
Yeah, you also have a Crest of Order, which helps you look, oh, wow, this is painful. So this is one of those decision points where it's like, I want to keep Sword of the Sky King. It's one of the few cards that matters, but I'm putting myself in a position where I'm probably not casting Vital Arcana on 5 if I do that.
Yeah, and also with Bradykin having the Stronghold Visages, I'm not sure if that's the way you want to manage the game.
Right.
as we saw in Game 1, where Bradykin's going to have a big advantage in games that are about relic weapons if it goes that way.
So Cardinal keeping the 8-drop for later action and in a position where they're unable to do anything. They can cast Harsh Rules. That's the only card they can cast right now, and Bradykin is just not concerned about that at all. Note also that Bradykin has Unseal in hand, has had that the whole time, and is just, does not have a problem putting shields down to cast that Vital Arcana.
He's got bigger targets in mind with that card.
And, the fact that Bradykin's gotten to cast a couple Strategizes and a Vital Arcana means they've been able to sculpt their hand a lot better for this matchup than Cardinal has. Cardinal is kind of at the mercy of the top of their deck, and they're not really doing much to change that. Aurelian Merchant from Bradykin could potentially go for a Temporal Distortion and maybe try to set up Channel plus the Unseal. Oh, looks like Bradykin doesn't even have Temporal Distortion in their market. Interesting. Oh, because they grabbed it.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it's the same drill here of, as long as you have a negate to cover you get a pretty sizable advantage there.
So, Harsh Rule trading for Aurelian Merchant is one of the best things you can do in this matchup.
Also, you got to keep in mind that Bradykin has a lot of threatening 8s in their deck, and it's not like Cardinal's really well set up to defend against any of it.
Yeah.
So even just the +1 power there is pretty threatening.
Bradykin having access to 2 Auric Runehammers certainly might have prompted them to just run one out there and just start getting damage in.
Yeah.
Also, because of how many ambush units are in either of these decks, you can't really count Auric Runehammer even killing anything to begin with.
Yeah. It's just it's a spot to get into chip shot, and you're on Channel of Tempest. You have other relic weapons in your deck, so it's not really a matchup that's about health totals, but you might as well get your shots in when you can.
So, Bradykin chose not to unseal Vital Arcana. They're leaving that for Channel of Tempest.
Yes.
Ooh, Cardinal missing their critical 8th power here. They can cast Wisdoms, but they can't cast any of their really heavy hitters, and it'll be interesting to see if Bradykin goes for that Channel of Tempest here.
Well, I think if you're Cardinal, you gotta play something here, right? I guess you could hope to swallow up the Runehammer with the Scorpion and Wasp here, and hope that Bradykin won't play the Channel of Tempest into the face of your open power should you pass the turn back.
Bradykin could also leave all their power up, and then at the end of their own turn, if Cardinal plays Scorpion Wasp, you can fire off Channel of the Tempest because it's fast. But, here we go. Aurelian Merchant. That's going to give Bradykin the opportunity to Channel the Tempest. And seems like a pretty good chance they just take that opportunity. They can't deal damage to Cardinal because of the Face Aegis, but it can kill that Aurelian Merchant.
Just want to take your time, though. Stakes are very high here, so even the plays that look straightforward, I think it's wise
good
to be mindful.
Double, triple check just to make sure you know what you're doing. So Bradykin's landed the first channel and has a Distortion already in play, significantly ahead of Cardinal in the metrics that matter here. Deciding whether to keep Scorpion and Wasp on top, and it depends how much you think that this is going to revolve around relic weapons as well.
The Bishop's there, not a bad draw for Bradykin, something to fill out the 5 power this turn. And again, if the game is going to be about relic weapons, and it's kind of shaping up that way, especially with both players having a player Aegis, Bradykin, we saw in Game 1, you want to kind of get that sort of soft lock set up.
Strategize somewhat missed there. Bradykin's really hoping to draw something meaty to play, and going to have to settle for maybe just a Scorpion Wasp to just start getting extra damage in. Also, once you're hitting with Auric Runehammer, then you do value every point of damage.
I think the philosophy here for Bradykin is, I just want to leave these things back to be able to interfere with opposing relic weapon attacks that are trying to knock out my relic weapon.
Funny exchange there. Bradykin goes to attack with the Auric Runehammer. Cardinal plays a Desert Marshal, and Bradykin casts Harsh Rule at fast thanks to Temporal Distortion. Things have swung a little bit here. The last 4 cards Bradykin has drawn have not been particularly relevant, and now they're the one who's actually somewhat behind.
Yeah, and this is why I think the Visage is sort of the swing card in the matchup. When it's firing, when it's being really good, I think it locks Cardinal out of the game. And the games where Bradykin's kind of floundering on having enough relevant cards to work with, it's one more card that's just not that relevant.
So Cardinal runs out Sword of the Sky King and just takes this opportunity to take out that Auric Runehammer. Bradykin doesn't have a good answer to Sword. Bradykin can play a Scorpion Wasp to stop the Sword from hitting for a turn, but these Auric Runehammers are going to have a hard time doing it, especially since Cardinal has their own ambush units here.
Yeah, you're trying to couple together, you hit once, you block the sword with your Scorpion Wasp, and then you hit again. But that assumes Cardinal has, like, nothing to interact with anything at any stage of the game.
And Cardinal, again, thanks to that, this last couple turns of card draw, has caught up here. Bradykin is now short on options, and Cardinal is very long on them. Cardinal with the Sword of the Sky King. Probably anticipating an ambush unit here. I'd be surprised if they thought this attack was going to resolve. And in fact, Scorpion Wasp does jump in front. And that does mean that Cardinal doesn't have an easy answer to the Auric Runehammer, but they might go for the Channel of the Tempest here. Unfortunately for them, Bradykin has been saving that Unseal, and it's going to pay off here.
But Cardinal's still way ahead on stuff to work with.
Cardinal's going to play another crest to scout. Sees a Desert Marshal, which is actually kind of close. But the finish line's in sight. These players have to be very tense right now.
I kind of like to dream big in this spot, because if you draw a mediocre card, you just throw it in the market.
Yeah.
So if the Desert Marshal is, a 50th percentile draw, in your opinion, I would just send it to the bottom.
Yeah, and your heavy hitters are just so much better. Your channels and merchants and whatnot.
Yeah.
Ooh, will Cardinal use Island's Choice when Bradykin has one card in hand? I kind of like snapping it off.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good choice from Cardinal. Now we're going to see Cardinal get firmly ahead. Still a few turns away from ending the game, thanks to the Stronghold Visage, but that knocks down the Auric Runehammer. Cardinal has multiple units to step in front of the second Auric Runehammer and is up multiple cards here. Even more now thanks to this Vital Arcana.
Yeah, and you just kind of keep going here. If the last card in hand is Harsh Rule, you don't really care that much about it. You still have Desert Marshal as insurance for a Relic Weapon. And if Bradykin, has been strategizing and marketing away a lot of his anti-unit cards, which you can kind of imagine happening by this point, then your units might be good.
Seek Power here, pretty anemic draw for Bradykin, and they've got to be pretty unhappy about how things are going. End of turn Vital Arcana for Cardinal. Oh, into Wisdom. Here we go. The train has started to roll. It's left the station, and I don't know how Bradykin's going to come back. This is part one, I guess. Cardinal missing on their draws. Like they did stall here. They're no longer drawing, especially since that Aurelian Merchant can no longer get a card draw spell.
Yeah, you'd imagine that all the juicy merchant targets by this point are drained out. Now you have to go get some, anti-aggressive option, converting a power, something kind of modest.
Yeah, there's no downside to throwing away power here, and actually, Great Parliament does end the game fairly quickly. This puts Bradykin in a spot where they've got to hit really big on this Wisdom of the Elders. Yeah. Bradykin goes for Wisdom, find the way, brick, Crest of Order brick, and it looks like Cardinal's going to be advancing to the finals here if they run out this Great Parliament and just go for it.
Yeah, they still might want to keep it as an insurance maybe, but Runehammer suggests that Harsh Rule is not in hand.
Yeah, if you had Runehammer there, or Harsh Rule there, you probably wouldn't run out the Runehammer right here. So this is tricky because Bradykin does have Temporal Distortion, but Cardinal's got to be, their heartbeat's got to be going a mile a minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good window to do it, and
boom, there we go. So Cardinal advances past Bradykin, making the finals here at our Eternal Test event, Shadowfall, and well, we've got some finalists.
Yeah, that was great. And when you distill that game down, what's the difference in the decks? It's Island's Choice versus Stronghold Visage, and the game that Bradykin was able to make it just, the spells really don't matter because of player ages, and the units don't really matter because we have so many in the way of sweepers and removal. I'm going to have a huge advantage in the games that are about relic weapons, which we saw in Game 1. Games 2 and 3, the Visage didn't really do anything because the games were about enough different stuff at different times that Bradykin couldn't narrow down the scope of the game to be just about Sword of the Sky King battles. And we're talking about who plays a better Channel of the Tempest game than I think that's going to be Cardinal more often than not, and that's what we saw in games 2 and 3.
Yeah, and the nature of this matchup is that the player who gets ahead often stays ahead because the additional card draw finds you not only ways to draw more cards, ways to stop them from drawing cards. And we saw some key negates there that would stop Channel the Tempest from resolving.
Yeah, I mean the games kind of take the dual shape of it's about raw cards. Do you have enough stuff to get to 8 power, and then do you have enough stuff to play 2 cards in one turn when that becomes critical? But also, the game is about a handful of cards that matter and a lot of stuff that bounces off of each other. And having something like Island's Choice, having more ways to stop Channel the Tempest and Vital Arcana to a lesser degree, that is really relevant. And once, as the card drawing, A goes to B, C goes to D, E, F, you kind of go off the runway. If you stop A, often there's 3 or 4 turns that are normally very, very fluid that instead you're sort of floundering. You draw a power, you say go. You draw a harsh rule, you say go, instead of just draw 2, go to my turn, draw the card drawer, and now I'm off and running.
Right. So we've got finals coming up soon. The round has ended. Players just have a couple minutes to set up. We do have more preview cards here. We can maybe get a last chance at a preview card. We'll see. And then we'll have a finals matchup for you. We've got some deck lists we can take a look at. Let's see where we're going next. Are we hitting a preview card? All right, let's hit a preview card. Like I said, we got a last chance here. Literally a last chance here. It's a 0-cost spell. Draws a unit from your void, and the unit gets void bound. So what that means is once that unit goes back into the void, if it were to die again, you foolishly use up its last chance, can never leave the void again. So it is power, but it comes at a cost.
Exactly. And I think we're trying to hit a story beat here. I think the read is really sweet. It's evocative, and 0-cost spells have a history of sort of overperforming how they read. So anything that gives you that kind of like flexibility and recursion has a shot to sew up, even if there's a bit of a downside to it.
Yeah, and Last Chance has a lot of juicy targets to get back and a lot of cool like sequences that you can make, especially if you have maybe units that care about you playing spells, or you have ways to recur things that you want to do it all in the same turn. But once you take that plunge, you no longer do it again.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for the first time a unit comes back from the void, that can be a fun moment for both players. The 4th or 5th time a unit comes back from the void is typically not so fun. And so I think Voidbound sort of allows us to capture what's fun about this kind of stuff while also managing some of what can be not fun sometimes about this stuff.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a deck list here. We've got Cardinals TJP control deck. This is the Temporal Distortion deck. You see Cardinals in the finals, and yeah, if you notice, they do not have any of the Stronghold Visages in the main or in the market.
Yeah, and we saw one game where that difference was really impactful in the wrong way, and then 2 games where the difference was really impactful in the other direction. Now Cardinals in the finals.
Yeah, and maxing out on sweepers here, just about 4 Hailstorm, 4 Harsh Rule, and 2 End of the Story. Only 4 market cards. Maybe you just don't need all 5. And 4 Aurelian Merchants to go get those cards. A lot of ambush units too. 3 Desert Marshals and 4 Scorpion Wasps.
Yeah, and so the what you're trying to do is have enough stuff that plays back against aggressive strategies, because you have a lot of expensive cards that don't necessarily line up the right way there. And because the TJP mirror match is so much about relic weapons, the Desert Marshals and the Scorpion Wasps aren't very good there, but they do line up the right way sometimes, where it's, if I'm able to block your relic weapon, I can swing back and finish yours off with mine. And so they play well in the matches where you need that sort of thing, and then in the mirror match, they're not great, but they do enough to justify the slot.
So I think actually it looks like the missing card is the Great Parliament. I believe that's their last market card. We saw them go get that last time, so it looks like we didn't pull that one. But yes, this is their qualifier list, which they maybe weren't playing it at that point.
Well, yeah, when the qualifier, you're still trying to sort it out, so you play a 4-card market, and then you imagine the card you would have liked to get most often if it wasn't there, and then that becomes your 5th market target for the main event.
Well, it has worked out pretty nicely. Notice Cardinal running the 25 power, but 3 seek power to find the way. So actually a little light on power the way some of these decks are constructed, leaning pretty hard on strategize, Aurelian Merchant, and the crests in order to make sure that they hit the sufficient power.
I mean, when you don't have, I found in strategies like this, when you don't have Channel the Tempest, it's really easy just to draw too much power. And you want to get off the ground too, so you're trying to balance that. The seek power and find a way, there's a blend there of wanting to make sure that you have all of your factions reliably. Find the way, it's 2 cards, much like Privos of Rank, has interactions with merchants, so It's a balance of trying to get enough to work with, but also making sure you have enough meat in the deck that when the game drags out, you're drawing enough good cards.
Yeah, and I see Cardinal also wisely put in some Jotun hurlers, for the big event.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, once you hit the top 32, you do need the hurler.
Yeah, then it's serious mode, and you had to play with the best cards.
So we're getting our game set up pretty quickly here. Just to give you a preview of the matchup, we have Cardinal playing something very similar to this list, this TJP control deck, playing against Drunkseroff, playing Big Combre. We saw Drunkseroff win that kind of insane Combre mirror match earlier, and that's going to be pretty exciting to see how these decks face off against each other. And it looks like they're ready, so we're going to head down to the match. Alrighty, welcome to the finals of Shadowfall here at the Eternal Test event, and I'm Luis Vargas here with Patrick Sullivan watching Cardinal on TJP control, face down against Drunkseroff on Big Combre for the title of the first Eternal champion, actually.
Yep, and Drunkseroff's hope in this kind of matchup is that they have enough units that apply pressure while also avoiding a lot of the reactive elements. You're kind of hailstorm proof. Cards like Desert Marshal, there aren't that many high value cards to target, and hopefully if the game drags out, you still have enough stuff going on that you aren't necessarily doomed.
Ooh, the market's got a lot of action here. Looks like Drunkseroff has a lot of very powerful cards to go get and is well prepared for this matchup.
Yep, and Stand Together is a really important tool of, try to get some stuff on to the table, force the opponent to harsh rule, and then have Stand Together available.
Cardinal on all sweepers, a bunch of harsh rules, and looks like a Hailstorm that they were contemplating with a scout, but Hailstorm doesn't look like it's going to have a ton of utility right here. So Drunkseroff has to decide, do they want to play out the Sandstorm Titan and not have Stand Together up, or do they want to wait a couple turns and have both? Looks like they're just going to run out the Sandstorm Titan, and I like that play.
Yeah, you got to get enough on the table to induce a harsh rule in the first place, and Cardinal has to have the 5th power undepleted plus a harsh rule. No guarantees that's the case. And if they miss, they are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so what Drunkseroff would love to draw here is a threat that costs 3 or less. Yeah. If they could deploy it and still leave up Stand Together, then they're going to find themselves in a very comfortable position.
And Cardinal's kind of jammed up here because you don't really want to deploy the Merchant when it's likely you have to harsh rule next turn. But if you strategize and find the way, or sort of manipulate material that way, the cat's out of the bag about what you're setting up.
Yeah, and given that Drunkseroff already played a Merchant, you would not be surprised to find that there's a Stand Together waiting for you. So Drunkseroff, not in a position that I think probably makes them feel too good, because Scorpion Wasp would be really devastating right there, but luckily for them, Cardinal does not have the Wasp.
I mean, you got to pick and choose what you're playing around. When you Merchant for Stand Together, it's already a bit of a declaration that I'm not going to be super concerned with Scorpion Wasp, and you can't not attack there. If you ran the risk of playing the Sandstorm Titan into a potential harsh rule, you got to follow through and attack the next turn.
For sure, and Drunkseroff does exactly that. We'll see if Cardinal goes for the harsh rule here, because they're in a position where they can go for harsh rule, get it Stand Together, and then next turn harsh rule again and hope and be able to beat the first Stand Together, which often this deck doesn't have the luxury of doing that.
Yep. And it's not like you're under so much pressure that you feel hopeless here. If there is a Stand Together, it's bad for you, and if there's a second one, it's really bad, but you can probably manage just the one here.
So harsh rule gonna prompt Stand Together from Drunkseroff, and that'll leave Drunkseroff with 8 points of power in play here, but does not draw the follow-up Stand Together. That's the card they were looking for more than anything else, because now if they play something else, they just get swept up by the second harsh rule, which they have to imagine is coming.
I think with Desert Marshal, you have an incentive to say go here, because if the follow-up is another harsh rule, you get to play Desert Marshal, go to your turn, and then play a Great Parliament for 2. If you didn't draw a Desert Marshal, I think it becomes a tough decision, but being able to play an ambush unit post harsh rule, I think, makes it easier.
Oh, wow. Sword of Unity. That would have been great last turn, but still going to be, I think, a pretty strong card as the way this game develops, because Cardinal is unlikely to have the 3rd harsh rule, so you have to feel decent about your Great Parliament here, though it only makes 1 owl currently.
Yeah, it does sting, I mean, but I don't know what the alternative. I mean, if you say go, you're really vulnerable to any sort of relic weapon.
Sword of the Sky King comes down. It's going to take out the Desert Marshal, and even the Drunkseroff is going to be able to play multiple owls. Actually, they can actually go Marshal Ironthorn, play a power, play 2 owls off Great Parliament, and that does give you a pretty decent edge against relic weapons.
Yeah, Martial Ironthorn is about the best draw possible here. It's both a threat and a way to play the Great Parliament for 2 owls. I don't know if you're going to do a whole lot better than that. Looks like a slightly different line here, though.
Yeah, it looks like Junksoft's just going to go with the 2 owls here. Potentially worried about another harsh rule, but I think you're in a position where you probably can't beat the 3rd harsh rule anyway.
Well, there's also, you would kind of like to be able to get another stand together out of the sword. And so you want to put some stuff onto the table. Maybe some of it dies. And hopefully just set up Martial Ironthorn plus a kicked up sword and be able to manage some sweepers that way.
So Cardinal finds their own Great Parliament here. So they've got owls, but the good thing for Junksoft is I guess Sword of Unity could give them an ability to get out ahead of these owls.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I mean, you can play Martial Ironthorn and another Great Parliament, and then, hopefully Cardinal's just on some card drawers and not another sweeper, and then the sword the following turn might just be overwhelming.
Because it grants overwhelm?
Among other reasons, yeah.
Martial Ironthorn comes down, power comes down. You get to this point against the TJP deck almost every time. You just have to just jam all of your cards. Like you just can't get in a spot where you think that they're going to be able to do something. Trading owl for owl there. Not the most profitable when you have a Sword of Unity in your hand.
Yeah, I would prefer probably just to say, if the whole plan here is to hope that your stand together is good, then I think that you can't trade off owl for owl, because the following turn, your owls will be better than their owls.
Cardinal casting Vital Arcana. Pretty robust health total at this point, 12 plus 2 armor. Though that Sword of the Sky King may trade for a Martial Ironthorn here.
I mean, you have to be, if you're in Cardinal's spot here, you have to feel pretty good about a Permafrost backed up by Island's Choice as protection the next turn.
Yeah, that is a lot of action. And you could just sit on the sword and not attack anything and try to wait it out till you hit a harsh rule. That does give Junksoft the benefit of getting Martial Ironthorn's trigger every time you play power. Yeah, this is a difficult turn for Cardinal. I also don't believe they've played a power yet, so there's even some appeal to casting Find the Way.
Yeah, I think there's some amount of, it might be better for me just to manage the flying units here because I can jump block out the non. Although
that Great Parliament was a great draw, as the name would imply, but that Island's Choice does counter it. So that Sword of Unity is still going to be good, but it would have been just unstoppable with the 2 additional owls in play.
This is still a really good looking turn here for Drunkstar off, though. You're definitely going to be able to get the Sword of the Sky King off, and you have quite the presence left over after the fact. And none of your units can...
None of your units die here.
Yeah.
I guess Cardinal could technically take it and just fall to 1. They might throw away some of their units just to get some additional health. But they're pretty far away from stabilizing here. They do have a lot of power and a lot of card draw, so they could easily find what they need. The deck has answers to everything, but they need to find it. They are under some time pressure.
And you only have so much power to work with, so you need to be able to cobble together your card drawing and also have the power left over to play whatever it is you're drawing to. It's asking a lot.
So Owl's going to jump in front of Owl to save 5 health, and all right, it's going to be up to Cardinal to draw the right answers here with this wisdom and these strategizes. Let's see what they can peel.
Yeah, you need to find a flying unit. Although I suppose you can fall to 1. The owl doesn't necessarily have to be answered. But you also need to take... It looks like you're probably going to have to take away Overwhelm from Martial Ironthorn as part of this too.
So Cardinal has a path to live here. It's Desert Marshal, the Martial Ironthorn, and then Island's Choice it, and then fall to 1 from the Owl.
And then you have the Scorpion Wasp the next turn? And
yeah.
Assuming that Cardinal doesn't draw any... Trunksoft doesn't draw anything of note, you're okay. Yeah,
that is a path. Almost anything from Junksoft would potentially finish it, though. Any way to deal additional 1 point. But not going to quite get there here. So I think Cardinal's play is forced here. Because Martial Ironthorn has Overwhelm, there's just no other way to get around.
Yeah, you have to... there's no blocking to be done, so you need to do this.
All right, so Cardinal needs to find something or rather, Cardinal has found everything they need. Drunk needs to find one additional threat, but it's got Cardinal on the ropes here, so this is going to be a really close game.
Yep. I mean, you have a lot of draws. Anything with Overwhelm, Suroff, there it is.
Wow, Suroff, you get to play and use Suroff in the same turn here. So that's going to put Cardinal under a very fast clock because just Suroff accumulating value over time is gonna be critical. All right, let's see what Suroff hits. A Nightfall unit, that'd be so funny. A 16/16
Plated Demolisher. That is also funny.
Yes. That is extremely great. So Plated Demolisher doesn't have Overwhelm, so it's not gonna finish the game in one shot here.
Well, you know, it's another thing that you do have to answer.
So pre-combat using Suroff here could get you something with charge. It could get you something that removes a blocker. Snapping Brushstalker.
Sick.
So that's pretty funny because it's 10/10, but you can't kill it with spells. Every time a Harsh Rule or Vanquish gets played, it hops back to your hand. So it's kind of like a Harsh Rule guarantee here. You know, giving the Brushstalker, I would be really tempted to just run out the Initiate here.
And I like Cardinal's line here of not playing the Scorpion Wasp. I think that's a very easy thing to do in that spot. Just why wouldn't I get rid of the Plated Demolisher? I think the reasoning is I have to draw a Harsh Rule anyway to be able to stabilize
and
this.
that stops the Brushstalker.
Yeah, and then it stops the Brushstalker, or it stops just any random follow-up from there.
Okay, so Channel the Tempest is what you're looking for. Casting a Hailstorm, which purely to return the Brushstalker to hand here.
What a game!
All right, Suroff going to be spinning the wheel again here, and we're going to hit. Ooh, an Explorer Emeritus. So this is a
keep going.
04 that you could exhaust it to draw a card. Okay, Sword of Unity, not quite enough to give Aegis, but you could just run it out. But you know, I don't even think Drunk Suroff is in a spot where they need to even take that risky of a line. They are out grinding this deck.
Yep.
The Brushstalker coming back for more. Channel the Tempest can take out Suroff, bounce the Brushstalker, but you know, Sword of Unity on the Explorer Emeritus, no, it doesn't quite do it past the Aurelian Merchant. Ooh, that was a really good Channel the Tempest to hit end of the story and another Channel the Tempest. This could be a really interesting conclusion here.
Yeah, I mean, but Cardinal's doing this all on one. I mean, any slip up and done.
Yeah. And Drunk Suroff's going to get to draw 2 cards next turn thanks to the Explorer. Also, if Cardinal somehow attacked that Aurelian Merchant, we could see Sword of Unity doing the trick, though. That seems a little ambitious. Cardinal now deciding whether to play a power, because you do have, to some degree, the incentive to not play power to keep Channel the Tempest dealing the max damage.
But you also want to be able to channel and then play everything that's relevant that you draw.
Right.
So it cuts both ways.
Speaker here giving all the power Echo, Lingering Influence, finding a power, and then showing you a World Bearer Behemoth.
Sure, why not? I mean, next turn if you're setting up Sword anyway, then you have, you know, you're going to get an Aegis on that. Seems worth keeping on top.
Snapping Brushstalker and not deploying Initiative Sands. So passing the turn back to Cardinal, who likely going to cast End of the Story here. Oh, they're going to choose to go with Channel. I guess given that they bounced the Brushstalker anyway, Channel is a good way to do it. Oof, Cardinal drawing lots more action. So this game is far from over at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the prize here for Drunk Suroff is to get something with Overwhelm protected, so then the chump blocking the Cardinal's been able to do is ineffective.
At this point, Drunk Suroff has 14 power. They can play World Bearer Behemoth and Initiate and Sword of Unity all in one fell swoop if they want. They could also put the sword on the Voice of the Speaker, because then they could attack and force the Aurelian Merchant to block. Okay, so they're going to keep the World Bearer Behemoth. Are they going to give the Snapping Brushstalker Echo? No, they're just going to wait. They're not going in quite yet. Uh-oh. Silencing the Snapping Brushstalker signifies an end of the story coming here.
Yep.
The funny thing is, Cardinal also could have played end of the story with Tribute by hailstorming away their own Desert Marshal, and that cuts right through Aegis.
So if you end up using the end of the story here, then you might be exposed to the sword plus the World Bearer Behemoth.
Yeah, though it looks like Cardinal's going to go with Permafrost on the Snapping Brushstalker, which indicates they're not likely to cast into the story here. That would be a very strange sequencing indeed. And then Hailstorm. And then Channel the Tempest. All right, well, it feels like Cardinal started to get a pretty firm grasp on this game now.
But there is some risk there to that line. I mean, your Channel the Tempest, which before could answer a unit, is now just, if you draw a bunch of power like you just saw.
So do you play the sword here? It looks like Drunksoft's going for it. They're going to make an 8-9, a 9-10 Aegis Overwhelm. At this point, Cardinal's actually dead unless they strategize into something. They drew the strategize. They're gonna use their crest first. They're gonna strategize. If they can find a way to kill their own Aurelian Merchant, then they would be able to end the story. So their actual only hope is to attack and hope Drunksoft blocks here.
This feels like a no block to me.
Yeah, given you're at 30, there's just no way to do this. And it looks like, oh no, Drunksoft's gonna be able to. They're gonna lose the Aegis end of the story. So they're gonna put both players down to nothing. But there's a Sandstorm Titan with Cardinal at 1 and a Mystic Ascendant. Do you just run them both out?
No, I think the effect of having the drawing to power and being able to keep going is too good.
All right, Disjunction. It's gonna get back Sword of the Sky King. That's gonna take out the Sandstorm Titan. The Mystic Ascendant still represents lethal though. So Drunksoft. Oh, and more than lethal now. So Drunksoft is gonna get to draw a card. If they can draw another stand together, that will basically seal it up. Oh, Temple Scribe. That's
not bad either.
No, that is great. Into Temple Scribe. Army in a can here. Drunksoft's going off. Amber Wista, not the best. Harsh Rule! Oh, wow, this game is insane. So, Cardinal gets to wipe the board. They're holding on at 1 health, 3 armor, hitting with the Sword of the Sky King. It's on Drunksoft. Great Parliament. They just drew the power. Now they can make 4 owls here.
No, you gotta ask a difference between 3 or 4 owls. If you draw another Mystic Ascendant, you want to leave it back, but still, huge draw.
We're slamming. We're slamming.
Yeah, we're just slamming.
The Parliament has assembled. Drunksoft is up a game here in the finals. That was an insane sequence of top decks.
Wow, I mean that one just went right back and forth. We got a preview here.
Oh, we got a preview card.
Or not.
All right. Well, you got a glimpse of it, but we'll get back to that one after the match here. Matt Nass is just ready for us to preview the card. So
pre-spoiler, spoiler.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you read fast, then you may have gotten a glimpse of what that does. We're back down into the match though, so we're going to be heading back there momentarily here. Alrighty, Drunks are off here. We'll get in the game score in just 1 second. They are up a game, facing down against Cardinal, playing Temporal Control. Drunks are off on Big Combre, and both players leading with some crests here, ready to kind of set up their game plan. Reminder: this is the finals, so the winner here is the winner, and we're going to end up, concluding our top 32 single elimination here with this potentially this game. Though Cardinal hopes that is not the case.
And a really well played game there on both sides, and I think Drunks are off, definitely showing an understanding of the value of Aegis and Overwhelm in this matchup.
Yeah, I liked how Drunksoft navigated there. There was a lot of tricky lines of play and a lot of turns where it was very close on whether you wanted to extend more into a harsh roll or pressure them in case they played something like Sword of the Sky King. So Drunksoft using Lingering Influence to develop their power base as well. And first play on the board, Cardinal with an Aurelian Merchant, utilizing the combo of Jotun Hurler plus Merchant to its fullest potential here. And yeah, unsurprisingly, they just get a Vital Arcana. Just like kind of the natural curve here. You go Merchant into Arcana.
Yeah, start the chain going, especially here with Cardinal not having the second Primal Influence. Can't cast the Wisdom of the Elders.
Drunks are off with their own Aurelian Merchant. Maybe cashing in something like a Desert Marshal.
Yeah.
Looks like Temple Scribe. Getting the stand together.
I would not want to cash in Temple Scribe in a spot here, especially when you're getting sand together and you have a sword, where you're kind of in the market for bodies and cards and your power drops. Seems like Desert Marshal would be the more questionable card there.
Yeah, that ended up being a somewhat aggressive line, and Drunks are off drawing another 5-cost card with only 4 power. I don't think it pays off particularly well. Drunks are off going to main phase the Desert Marshal here to silence the Aurelian Merchant to make it so it's no longer generating power.
Cardinal here under no pressure and can really just start chaining together these card drawing spells.
Strategize here from Cardinal, and Faced with a lot of options here, the question is how long of a game do you expect this to go? Do you think you're going to need a 5-cost 4/4? Do you really want Sword of the Sky King? The answer is probably yes on Sword of the Sky King. There's just a lot of different things going on here.
Yeah. I would err on the side, if you're going to be spending a lot of power drawing cards, I would err on the side of keep your cheap cards and get rid of the more costly ones if it's close. And I think Cardinal made the same call here and put the Hurler on the bottom. It's not like the Hurler effectively blocks in this matchup too. When Drunksarov's doing his thing,
it's just
way over. It is so much more than a 4/4.
Cardinal well ahead this game. Just able to cast multiple Vital Arcanas, about to start casting Wisdom of the Elders, just developing their power and under absolutely no pressure, whereas Drunksarov's accumulating more expensive cards in hand. Another World Bearer Behemoth. So even that Temple Scribe wouldn't have necessarily gotten them out of this.
No. I mean, Drunksarov's hand's very chunky, and one extra card here may not have made much of a difference.
Wisdom of the Elders from Cardinal. Again, just keep ramping up to 8 and not under any particular amounts of pressure. Drunksarov deciding whether to cast maybe a Stand Together here.
Oof.
Not.
You still can't even really attack.
Yeah. You're getting in for 2 points a turn. Cardinal not particularly concerned about how things are going. They're able to curve out here. And I was wondering how long this would take before Cardinal decided just to pounce on the fact that Drunksarov is short on power.
Yep.
They might actually have to cast Stand Together here. I think they do.
Not pretty, but also, you have so many expensive cards in your hand. Your power is accounted for the next 5 or 6 turns anyway. So how many more windows you're going to have to sit on that Stand Together?
So the best thing Drunksarov could draw here would be like a Combrade Banner and just like play one of the World Bearer Behemoths and hope you get a chance to attack. Lingering Influence, that could do something.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least if it's power, but, that's basically your whole turn here. Cardinal's going to have another clean turn of being able to either draw a bunch of cards or play something like Sword of the Sky King.
Sword of the Sky King coming out, and if you can defend your Sword of the Sky King, then you're going to end up in a pretty good spot. Drunksarov again going to protect their merchant potentially with Desert Marshal here.
Yeah, I don't. Your hand doesn't amount to a whole lot else, and that Desert Marshal doesn't do a whole lot else. But you're just running out of cards to work with, and your hand's still extremely chunky.
Next turn, Drunksarov is drawing a Time Sigil thanks to that Lingering Influence, so they might be able to do something like Marshal Ironthorn, play Time Sigil, and then they're in a spot where they have a decent amount of power. Whether they gave Cardinal too much time, that's yet to be determined, but it's looking like yes. Another option is just to play a World Bearer Behemoth, because that one can't be eaten so neatly by the Sword of the Sky King.
Yeah, I mean, my instinct here is that you have to position yourself. Nothing you're going to play now is going to survive, and maybe not for the rest of the game. You have to position yourself to be able to play multiple cards in one turn to have any shot. You can't play I like the Marshal Ironthorn play here because all other things being equal, I want to have +1 power to, even if it's a long shot, try to set up, make a play plus Sword of Unity in the same turn and try to claw back into the game that way. If you just play your Time Sigil and a World Bearer Behemoth, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, so Marshal Ironthorn gives you that additional benefit of Empower, play another copy of the Sigil. So now, Cardinal still has a lot of good options, but doesn't actually have like a Harsh Rule or a way to remove Drunksarov's units, so that Sword of the Sky King, it's not clear where it wants to go.
Yep, I mean, you can still do good work here going after Marshal Ironthorn. You don't have to just knock Drunksarov out of the game entirely off of this single Sword of the Sky King. You can just get your 3 or 4 cards and, eventually grind out a win that game. That way, rather.
Cardinal still debating. Going with Permafrost on the Marshal Ironthorn, that is setting yourself up to not remove Marshal Ironthorn, and gives Drunksarov the benefit of its ability.
Yep. And if Drunksarov draws a power next turn, you have that plus Mystic Ascendant, and you're +2 power. You have another meaningful thing to play, and you're getting closer and closer to that long shot, but the thing you got to play for of doing multiple things in one turn.
All right, I like how this is going. For as bad as this game could be going for Drunksarov, these turns have started to feel like turns where you're making progress.
Yep. And you see some of the limitations of the removal in Cardinal's deck here are Permafrost plus Island's Choice. They're really good cards against big units typically, but Drunkstar does a lot to, do things that don't involve attacking, accumulate value kind of outside of combat, and then with Sword of Unity, that's also very good against Permafrost and Island's Choice.
So Drunkstar went with the World Bear Behemoth. They might be trying to set up a really big turn of play Mystic Ascendant, attack with World Bear Behemoth, get a power plus an extra power off Martial Ironthorn.
And the what you're likely expecting to happen here is, well, the Sword of the Sky King just takes care of the World Bear Behemoth. But that's not the end of the world, because then the coast is clear for your Mystic Ascendant.
So Cardinal does see an end of the story here with Warp, and they can snowball the Aegis down and then play end of the story here. So it looks like they're just going to do that. And that will clear the board. That will take Drunkstar down to 15 after the Sword of the Sky King. Now Drunkstar priced into playing either Mystic Ascendant or World Bear Behemoth, but for a lot less value than they would have the turn before.
Yeah.
Looks like Drunkstar is going to go with the Sandstorm Titan.
Just trying to, whatever he plays is going to get mowed down by the sword anyway, so just run out your least important card.
And looks like Cardinal is going to trade the sword for the Sandstorm. I think there was some doubt as whether you wanted to do that, given you had 2 Scorpion Wasps, but it's safer just to take it out and not run into some weird stand-together sequence of plays that's really bad for you.
Yeah, Cardinal's so ahead on cards here that, I think you go with the philosophy of just get your money. Don't worry about trying to squeeze out every last ounce. Just get 3 cards for your 1 card over and over again, and Drunkstar's going to run out of things.
Though the way this is looking, Drunkstar's going to eventually land that big Mystic Ascendant turn they've been trying to set up, because it looks like the World Bear Behemoth's probably going to get a hit in.
Yep. And again, the limitations of some of these removal spells here, they're just not very good at things that are working outside of combat like this.
All right, well, Great Parliament from Cardinal does mean that they're threatening to end the game here. So Drunkstar's going to play the Mystic Ascendant, and I think actually Cardinal can force a game 3 here. End of turn, you make the Great Parliament. You can then Sword of the Sky King away the Mystic Ascendant and hit for 13, or you can just hit for 12. Either way, it looks like Drunkstar's in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, and I think you have the backup plan of Harsh Rule plus Sword of the Sky King in 1 turn should you draw power number 13. So you can just dare Drunkstar to beat what's out in front and have some backup in case somehow Drunkstar can.
Though Sword of Unity, that's going to make things interesting. That'll make it an 11-11 Mystic Ascendant with Lifesteal. That'll take Drunkstar up to 14 after the attack here. And Cardinal can't quite. Oh, can Harsh Roll in response and then use Sword of the Sky King. All right, so we are gonna clean this game up here for Cardinal, and we're gonna be seeing a game 3 here. Of course, the finals are gonna go to game 3 with both these players fighting hard for their place in the tournament here.
Yeah, 2 very compelling games so far. I think Drunkstar there a little slow out of the gates, as we saw. It just took too long to get anything substantive. By the time they were able to play their World Bear Behemoth and Mystic Ascendants, just the game was too far gone. You want to have more pressure early on and then back it up with your 4s and 5s and 6s like we saw in the first game.
Alrighty. Looks like game 3 is starting, so we're just going to head right back in. Alrighty. Welcome to game 3 here. I'm Luis Scott Vargas here with Patrick Sullivan. We've had a top 32 whittled down to a top 2. They each took one of the first 2 games. We're in game 3. This game will decide the tournament champion. And we've got Cardinal on TJP control facing up against Drunkstar here, who not going to have as many issues with power this game.
No. Yeah, this is a voice of the speaker and multiple shots at next turn between Temple Scribe and the draw to get a whole bunch of power.
It's going to be a big turn, though, because that Hailstorm's coming on 3. It's going to wipe out this board. But if Drunkstar can hit a power or 2, even just one off this Temple Scribe, it's going to go a long way towards making this all worth it.
Yeah, you can hope that your World Bear Behemoth is good enough.
Oof, Aurelian Merchant didn't hit the power, so now Cardinal's gonna pull ahead here early with a Hailstorm, wiping down all 3 of these units that Drunkstar has.
But on the other side of it, Cardinal's hand, the Wisdom of the Elders is definitely the prize there. But you have a Vital Arcana that is right now not castable.
Yeah, and Drunkstar back on top of things, gonna exchange Desert Marshal for another World Bear Behemoth and just try to win the game with World Bear Behemoth plus Sword of Unity here, which has a shot. Cardinals, their deck's not the fastest, and they don't have a play that can remove the World Bear Behemoth before it attacks right now. So, really big turn here. Can Drunksoff find a power? Even if they can't, they get an attack with the World Bear Behemoth. No, Cardinal can't cast that Harsh Rule. Does not have second Justice.
Yeah, neither Vital Arcana nor Harsh Rule.
So that Aurelian Merchant's going to cash in one of Cardinal's potentially uncastable cards, or maybe that Primal Sigil. We'll see. For an Equivocate. Okay, so that's going to bounce the World Bear Behemoth and turn it into a random 5-cost unit. That is a Merciless Stranger. 3/3 Strangers are deadly. All right. The World Bear Behemoth coming down here still threatens the same sequence next turn, though.
Yep.
Oh, Cardinal found the second Justice Sigil, so we're gonna see a Harsh Roll. Well, Drunksoff's got more where that came from. Another World Bear Behemoth is gonna hit the board, and Cardinal loses a power on that exchange because their Aurelian Merchant goes away, so they can no longer curve nicely into Channel the Tempest.
Yeah, that's a big loss.
Okay, Wisdom finds the Harsh Roll, but unable to deploy it this turn. Unfortunately for Drunksoff, that Scorpion Wasp is really going to make things difficult for them. Because this is the natural play. Sword of Unity, make an Aegis, get my World Bear Behemoth up to a 9/10, send to get a power, but Scorpion Wasp is going to be a huge advantage for Cardinal here.
Yeah, and into Tempest plus card draw plus Harsh Rule as leftovers. Cardinal's hand's been just about perfect in this spot.
Yeah, this has been kind of like a textbook temporal control game. Starting with the Hailstorm on 3, starting with adjusting your threats even through some power difficulties, and then now just pulling very far ahead. The Merciless Stranger on the board here, but
It's time.
Yeah,
it is time.
Cardinal's got plenty of ammunition. They're going to be able to cast various sweepers here and use these Aurelian Merchants, and then of course that still has that Vital Arcana kind of ready to go. You can tell things aren't going well for you when your opponent Harsh Rules a 3/3 and a 1/1. Like, that's not the most threatening board, but Drunksoff is just completely out of gas here, and Cardinal's still well stocked on 5 cards.
Yeah, and you would like to try to do, play Seraph and activate in one turn, but that requires chaining together 3 power in a row. That's asking for a lot. Yeah,
I think Drunksoff's going to be in a position where they just have to just play the Seraph and kind of hope for the best. Cardinal, they started to set it up. Temporal Distortion's out here, so you get to play Temporal Distortion. You get to leave up End of the Story next turn or Vital Arcana. You get to, have Scorpion Wasp. It looks like Cardinal's going to take the safe play and just play End of the Story now.
Yeah. No reason to risk some random Aegis threat rolling off. Some large charge unit that could just kill you is part of the range. So it looks conservative, but with a hand that good, I think it's respectable.
All right, so currently Drunksoff's wondering what they can get out of the market. They could get Vodacon. That's just the highest reward. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they got. And yeah, if they have the time, Vodacon is the kind of card that can bring them back in the game.
And you have Find the Way and Seek Power in your deck. There's a shot at the right draw step. You could just go like right now.
Unfortunately for Drunksoff, Vodacon is also very vulnerable to silence. His strength and health are keyed off of his text box. So once you silence Vodacon, that'll do it.
Yep.
See the writing on the wall. Sword of the Sky King into Vital Arcana. So Cardinal, their deck's working exactly as they drew it up, and up to and including Desert Marshal sniping a Vodacon. Wow, I did not expect to see that in this event, and that is going to be really devastating to Drunksoff's chances here. Sword of the Sky King, multiple answers in hand, Vital Arcana, Drunksoff on not much except a Seraph that's just going to die to Sword of the Sky King. Cardinal can see victory in their grasp. They are ready to roll here.
Yep. Drunksoff going to hold out hope to try to do everything in one turn here. I think it's unlikely, but you can't just put the Seraph there into the sword.
Yeah, Drunksoff really gonna hope that they draw, I don't know, some combination of Great Parliaments. Something along those lines that can get multiple units into play. String together some Temple Scribes, perhaps. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, no one card does it. It needs to be a number of cards in a row.
Oh, and Aurelian Merchant, well, getting the Great Parliament. Cardinals gearing up to finish the game here. They don't have the 12 power. They can only make 2 owls this turn, but that's still enough to threaten lethal if Drunkstraff doesn't do anything. Initiative Sands. Cardinal's just going for it. Great Parliament comes out. If Cardinal could draw a Jotun Hurler, that would do the trick here.
Of course.
But Sword of the Sky King's going to take out the Initiate. Drunkstraff's going to fall to 7 after getting hit by the Parliament plus their assorted hangers-on. And Drunkstraff's got one more turn here to try to find an answer. Temple Scribe will not quite do it. Amber Waystone kind of keeps them alive for another turn. They just play this off. They've got multiple blockers, but I guess the Scorpion Wasp will do the trick.
The Permafrost, too.
Yeah,
a lot of ways to do it.
All right, and Cardinal, their opponent's on no cards in hand. Drunkstraff is facing down lethal here. Permafrost will close the game out. Permafrost on the Temple Scribe, the last card cast in this Eternal Championship here, and bam, there we go. The Great Parliament ends the session, and that would leaves Cardinal as our victor here.
Yep, congratulations, well deserved. A really impressive play, certainly through the semifinals and finals there.
Yeah, that was a really intense match. Cardinal, you could tell by the way they sequenced a lot of their stuff that they really knew what was going on. They knew how to maneuver with around the different counterplays the opponent could have and how to sequence their cards.
And it's a complicated matchup to play because it looks like, okay, well their units don't really have charge, and so my sweepers are going to be good here. And they have a bunch of big units and I have Island's Choice, but the fact that so many of their units work well outside of combat, and then there's considerations around Aegis and Overwhelm, means that you do have to be several steps ahead in sequencing out how you want to protect yourself, because a lot of your defensive measures do some of the work, but not all of it.
Yeah. So Cardinal emerges victorious, wins 80 packs of Fall of Origin Port for their troubles. Sweet. And that brings us to our preview card that we gave you a glimpse of before, a preview of a preview, as it were. This is Telut, Queen's Hand. This is a 7-cost 6/6, but says when you attack the enemy player with 1 unit, play a 2/3 weapon on that unit, and play 2 Justice Sigils from your deck, and your enemy units get -1 strength.
Yeah.
This card has a big impact on the game, I will say that.
Yeah, and then sort of the Justice tradition of Paladin Oathbook, it's another thing that pays you out for attacking with exactly 1 unit. Noteworthy with this one, there's a big difference between playing this and saying go and playing this and having a unit ready to go right away.
Oh, yeah.
The impact is so huge.
If you put Telut in your deck, you're going to want things for him to buff up. And notice it's a weapon too, so for weapons matter cards, it does trigger those.
Empower as well, so the same Martial Ironthorn Mystic Ascendant synergies that you're used to. And you also get a little bit of protection with the enemy units get -1. That comes up with a melee sometimes where you're attacking the first time, and it's, well, I only have, is it really worth being down my blocker to get the 1/1 and then get that ball rolling?
Yeah.
And when you have the same sort of scenario come up, but you're giving all the enemy units -1 strength, it makes it a lot easier to pull the trigger.
So that is Telut, Queen's Hand, going to be found in our campaign, which is coming out this week, Into Shadow. And we'll go ahead and, sure, we'll take a look at that. Bam, this is Drunkstraff's second place list. This is a big Combre, or maybe just Combre, I don't know. It was all Combre large. This deck is really built around Stand Together. You've got 3 Sword of Unities and to cast Stand Together in the main, and then you have 1 in the market. So you have a lot of ways to protect yourself from opposing sweepers and removal, but it goes pretty big. You got Voice of the Speaker, Initiative Sands, Martial Ironthorn, Lingering Influence, and Seek Power and Find the Way. So a lot of ways to take advantage of the Empower mechanic.
Well, it's Voice of the Speaker and 0 copies of Teacher Humility tells you everything that you need to know about the deck.
That really encapsulates what this deck's trying to do.
What you're trying to do is play these really powerful 5s and 6s and set up turns where you have Sword of Unity plus a presence, and that advantage is too much to overcome. So congratulations, a great run again, second place. And, that match in the finals was quite close.
Yeah. So that'll do it for our broadcast. Luis Scott Vargas here with Patrick Sullivan on behalf of Matt Nass, our producer, and, of course, Direwolf Digital. Thanks to everyone who watched. Thanks to everyone who competed. Thanks for bearing with us as we kind of, get our footing here as we test out both the tournament software and doing coverage. So thanks again, everyone, for spending part of your Sunday with us. And we will see you the next time we broadcast. We'll of course, announce our details as that comes up. But thanks to everyone. Congrats to everyone who did well in the tournament. And we will see you next time.